Kevin Knuth, Gary Nolan, Jacques Delay, Bobby Loeb, Kevin Knuth, Gary Nolan, Jacques Delay.
Disclosure process? Absolutely. Disclosure process? Absolutely. Disclosure process? Absolutely. Disclosure process? Absolutely.
Diana Pasoka, Halpota, Diana Pasoka, Halpota, Diana Pasoka, Halpota, Diana Pasoka, Halpota.
Disclosure process? Absolutely. Disclosure process? Absolutely. Disclosure process? Absolutely. Disclosure process? Absolutely. This is not a joke. Like, none of this was a joke. This is not a joke. A joke. This is not a joke. Like, none of this was a joke. This is not a joke. A joke. Entertainment. 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 Entertainment.
What is catastrophic disclosure of catastrophic disclosure? And don't forget, what is catastrophic disclosure of catastrophic disclosure? And don't forget,
Controlled disclosure
of catastrophic,
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 controlled disclosure
of catastrophic, societal disruption,
catastrophic disclosure
catastrophic,
catastrophic disclosure
societal disruption,
catastrophic disclosure
catastrophic,
catastrophic disclosure
Catastrophic disclosure, 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 catastrophic disclosure.
Psychological, philosophical, and psychological, philosophical, and psychological, philosophical, and psychological, philosophical, and psychological, theological.
Greetings and salutations, friends, and welcome back. Tonight we're going to be discussing a recent appearance by one Admiral Tim Gallaudet on the Shawn Ryan show. So many people have asked me about this person, and I have just some bullet points, not exactly notes. But one of the things that I think is very, very interesting is that there seems to be a conflation of credentials and credibility. I think we all need to be very cautious when evaluating extraordinary claims, regardless of who they come from. But there seems to be an ongoing theme in the world of UFOs and aliens that if somebody has high credentials and clearances, or they are a former military member or intelligence operative, which is crazy, then these people are just blindly trusted largely. And we have seen a recent example of this with Carl Nell, who essentially went to a conference and said, I know the aliens are visiting us. There is no doubt. And again, this is a high-ranking military officer. So for some reason, the people in the UFO and the alien community just eat this up. It is ear and eye candy to these people. And all it takes is having military experience. But there is a conflation of things here, because in the case of Carl Nell, first of all, he's a disgraced former military member who was essentially forced to retire because he was, there was some legal trouble. Let's leave it at that. He filed 5 appeals and lost all 5 of them and was essentially forced to retire in complete and total disgrace. And not long after that, he suddenly shows up in the UFO community saying things like, I know aliens are visiting Earth. I have no doubt. But when we dig a little deeper into Carl Nell, what we find out is that none of the information he claims to be aware of came from his official duties. At least so far, it doesn't appear so. In fact, his knowledge and information comes from other wackadoos and UFO books and documentaries and other people who say similar things to what he is saying. But I'm here to tell you that multiple people saying the same thing is not evidence that that thing is true. Evidence is evidence that that's true. But we seem to have a real problem here. And again, now we have another retired military officer coming forward and saying things like, we definitely have been in communication with aliens or non-human intelligence. I have no doubt. And what is his evidence for that? He hasn't really presented any. And Tim Gallaudet is an interesting case because the guy's an oceanographer. Now, I get it. There's a phenomenon called USOs, or unidentified submerged objects. Some of these strange objects seem to be what has been commonly called transmedium, meaning they can fly in the sky, fly in space, fly in under the ocean, or move under the ocean at tremendous speeds. But we never actually get the proof of that. And honestly, I think most of the USO cases are incredibly weak. But along comes this retired admiral, who, by the way, I believe he's starting a UFO organization. He's also going to be selling fake degrees on UFOs, kind of like Daniel Sheehan is. Maybe his will be less than $16,000. Who knows? And by the way, I have a lot of questions about people selling UFO degrees. Like, is this an accredited real degree, or are you just printing a piece of paper? And by the way, in the case of Daniel Sheehan, one of the people who is teaching that course is apparently going to be Richard Dolan, who is right now selling people superpowers with his psychic wife, Scientologist psychic wife, for $69. So I'm sorry, there's a bit of a credibility problem if you got your degree from some guy who's selling superpowers with his super psychic wife. There's a problem here. But back to this admiral, it would appear, I swear that there's some government bulletin board for military people or something, right? And these people are all hearing that, like, after you retire from the military, you can cash in your credentials in the UFO world and make big bucks. How many former military are cashing in on UFOs right now? Think about it. We've got David Grush. We've got Lou Elizondo. We've got this Carl Nell. Now we've got this admiral. So interesting that so many former military people seem to think that a good thing to do when you retire from the military is to sell evidence-free alien and UFO stories to stupid people. There were some interesting things that he said in this Shawn Ryan interview, who, by the way, Shawn Ryan is just another clown who knows nothing about this subject. And I have a real problem with a show host that knows nothing about a subject just cashing in. And Shawn Ryan can plead ignorance all he wants. He has platformed some of the biggest scammers in the world of UFOs, including Stephen Greer, Eric Hecker, that Michael Herrera. And by the way, Michael Herrera's entire original story just got blown to shit because somebody found his commanding officer who said none of the things that Michael Herrera said on Shawn Ryan's show actually happened, essentially. So Shawn Ryan is about as credible as a crackhead. There, I said it. And, it pains me to say that because I come from a military family. My father was a Navy man. But Shawn Ryan, despite his promises, you could look on his YouTube About section. He says, "I promise to always tell you, my audience, the truth." Well, how are you getting to the truth, Shawn Ryan, when you keep platforming like proven liars like Stephen Greer and Michael Herrera and this ridiculous Eric Hecker? Like it's just. But here's the thing: go look at his views. 250,000 views when he platforms a UFO wackadoo. So here we have Shawn Ryan cashing in again on yet another UFO wackadoo who has little or no proof or evidence of anything they're saying. But hey, it's great for clicks and views. This is how the whole scam works. And Shawn Ryan can sit there like an idiot and listen to these people say outrageous things, and he doesn't even push back or require any evidence or proof. I don't know, maybe it's just me because I've been interviewing people for a long time. I think I've gotten very good at it. But Shawn Ryan is perhaps the weakest, dumbest interviewer I've ever heard. He has absolutely no desire to dig a little deeper when somebody makes outrageous statements. And that's problematic for me. But I also wanted to take a moment. Let's talk about this circle of confirmation, as it's been called. There is a circle of confirmation among these UFO people where they basically just reinforce each other's delusions, which is pretty problematic. And what I have found is, in the case of Tim Gallaudet, I'm sorry, he's got a real hard to pronounce name. Gallaudet is how it's spelled. Gallaudet is how I've heard most people say it, I believe. But if you go to Mr. Gallaudet's LinkedIn, what you will find is that he is directly connected on LinkedIn to the same group of UFO wackadoos that have been pushing these unproven, unverified claims, evidence-free claims for years. He is directly connected on his LinkedIn to, let's see, Gary Nolan, Diana Pasolka, Travis Taylor, and other known UFO wackadoos. So it's important to understand that just because this guy is a high-ranking former military officer doesn't mean that he's immune to falling down the rabbit hole and believing these ridiculous claims largely without evidence. And we can hear in his interviews, pardon me, he actually is quoting Diana Pasolka. It's just one big circle jerk with the same group of people and their friends. And isn't it interesting that these people with these high credentials seem to make these declarative statements like, we're definitely being visited by extraterrestrials. And people seem to confuse things and think, oh, they must have found out the truth during their service as a high-ranking military officer. No, nothing this admiral is saying is new or, information that he gained by being an admiral. It's all information that he's getting from other UFO wackadoos, books, documentaries, and the like. So interestingly, we're going to put our fair use banner up, and we will be sharing. We're going to go through some of this interview, but I wanted to be sure to get the most important clips out of the way first, because he makes some absolutely ridiculous statements during this interview. And Shawn Ryan just lets him, great. The most disturbing claim that he made is that there is a government, the government, I guess the Men in Black or whoever, the government is paying online accounts, whoever they are, to trash other people on X. So right off the bat, major conspiracy. And what is his evidence for that? He has the same evidence for every statement that he made on this entire interview, just about. And that evidence is, trust me, bro. And I just wonder, haven't we gotten enough trust me, bro, guys? Even if you truly believe all this stuff, isn't there a point at which you say, we need more than these guys with the trust me, bro maneuver? They have to start having evidence. And every time I think, this can't go any further unless somebody starts bringing some evidence, it does go further, and it goes further on the trust me, bro. So we're gonna share this part, and this is from John from the Black Vault. But I completely agree with John, who says, if you knew this was true, why wouldn't you blow this conspiracy wide open and name names and drop evidence to prove that it's true? And the other thing is that he's essentially complaining here that we are being manipulated. The world is being manipulated by people who are trying to discredit these people talking about aliens. But what he forgets to tell you is that these people that are being discredited largely discredit themselves. He specifically singles out Lou Elizondo as being a national spokesperson or something. No, Lou Elizondo lied to the New York Times. He lied to TTSA investors about his resume, allegedly. And he's been caught over and over again pretending to be a Pentagon UFO program manager that never was. The program wasn't real. Doesn't that mean that people should be allowed to point that out? It's not. And by the way, I'm sure I'm on the list of the people. I can't tell you how many times people have accused me of being a paid disinformation agent. But what I always reply to that is very simple. Show me somewhere on my show where I got a fact wrong. Show me on my show where I've been caught selling a completely and totally fake story. You can't, because that doesn't happen here. So don't call me a disinformation agent when there's people like Jeremy Corbell, George Knapp, Lou Elizondo, and Greer, and so many others who have provably been caught selling completely and totally fake stories multiple times each. Wouldn't that make them the disinformation agents and me the guy with the facts and the evidence that proves they're lying? How? I don't understand this, but it is what it is. Let's get into it, friends.
There are individuals who I will not name who I believe are getting paid, but every day they get out online and they're well known in this UAP community, and their number one job is to discredit these national authorities, these people.
Lou Elizondo is not a national authority on anything but grifting people and lying to people. That's what he's a national authority on. And you know, I hate that I got to go hard at an admiral. Like, if my dad was alive to see this, he would be pissed. Be like, you leave that admiral alone, Stephen. But this guy is spewing nonsense for hours at a time, repeating a completely unproven, unverified, evidence-free claims of a disinformation campaign being waged against people like Lou Elizondo. Hey, Mr. Admiral, Lou Elizondo is the disinformation, you dummy. Remember the Go Fast? It was doing 40 miles an hour. Lou Elizondo put disinformation into the UFO community. Remember when he lied to the New York Times and said that he ran a $22 million Pentagon UFO program? Turns out that was disinformation, right? And on it goes. But these people, they all have these talking points, right? Oh yeah, there's an active disinformation campaign because we're telling the truth about the aliens. Elizondo's been here for 6 or 7 years. He hasn't provided evidence of shit. Nothing, right? But oh, this guy loves them, right? It's great. Lou Elizondo is only a national authority on allegedly running techno scams where investors are scammed out of millions of dollars. That's what he's an authority on, Admiral.
People like Lou Elizondo, who was with the task force, the UAP task force. I've met.
Full stop. This is another thing. This guy's going to start a UFO degree program. Lou Elizondo never worked for the UAP task force. Period. Full stop. He's completely and totally factually wrong here. And Shawn Ryan should know that if he was actually well educated on this topic, but he's not. Shawn Ryan is only here to cash in on it. He knows shit about any of this at all. Shawn Ryan knows dick about the history of UFOs and aliens. He knows nothing about this. A real person with a genuine interest in this subject who decides to to interview people would educate themselves, and they would know that Lou Elizondo was never part of the UAP task force. Full stop. He never was. And that's the problem I have with Shawn Ryan. Don't take the interviews if you don't know dick about this subject, Shawn Ryan. You don't know dick about any of this. You just let him lie to your audience with a straight face, completely and totally lie to your audience. Lou Elizondo was never part of the UAP task force. And this guy is going to sell you a degree about UFOs. He doesn't know that Lou Elizondo didn't run the UAP. Oh, my God.
Met and trust and know. And he is 100% who he says he is. And
he's 100% who he says he is. No, Admiral, he said that he ran a Pentagon UFO program, and he never did. That means he is definitely not 100% who he says he is. But he knows and trusts him, so it's all good. And again, this guy is part of the same group of UFO circle-jerking, profiteering clowns. Travis Taylor, Lou Elizondo, Dave Grush. They're all buddies. Gary Nolan, he's speaking at Gary Nolan's conference. They're all buddies. It's a big wackadoo circle jerk, right? A self-licking ice cream cone, a circle of confirmation, and they all confirm each other's evidence-free, faith-based belief system delusions.
What he says he's seen and knows, I have total confidence in.
What he says he's seen and knows, he has total confidence in. What has he said he's seen and knows? We might not be alone. He's shown no evidence of any of his claims for 7 years, you dumbass. Jesus Christ, I have total confidence that he is who he says he is. No, he's not. And that's proven by multiple on-the-record statements from the government that prove he's not who he says he is. But come on.
People like him, he's getting he's an active target of people discrediting him.
He's an active target of people discrediting him. Hey, Mr. Admiral, let me ask you a question. If you lie to the New York Times, or let's just say exaggerate, let's be fair as I could be and say, if you vastly exaggerate your resume in order to make money from UFOs, is that a problem? Or are you just okay with people who vastly exaggerate their resume in order to make money from UFOs? And if you lie to the New York Times, or you exaggerate your claims and your resume to the New York Times, and then you get caught, doesn't that mean you discredit it yourself? I would think so. But, you know, that's just me. But again, there's this unwritten rule among this whole UFO circle jerk group of spooky hustlers, all the same group. You all have to back each other up, right? And protect each other and, you know, help each other with your grifts.
And others too.
Interesting. Is there anybody I should be looking out for?
Gosh, I don't study this like other people.
Notice that he looked to the side. He's kind of asked for evidence and he looked to the side. That's an indicator of somebody imagining things, not recalling memories. Maybe he has no evidence of these extraordinary claims of an active government disinformation campaign against UFO scammer, whistleblowers, proponents, promoters, right? Maybe he has no evidence of this whatsoever. And here he will refuse to name anyone. So why did you even bring this up? Is this just a talking point to explain away why Lou Elizondo's entire history is getting blown to shit as all one big lie, right?
People do. Some people they really spend a lot of time on this. Yeah,
I'll ask you.
I'm just
offline.
not going to name names because I don't know. I don't want to do that. Yeah.
I don't want to name names. I don't want to do that. I agree with John from the Black Vault. If there's an active government disinformation campaign going on, why wouldn't you blow it out of the water, Mr. Admiral? Right? But that's not what we get here. What we get is maybes, hopes, so's, possibilities. And trust me, bro, there's definitely a disinformation campaign. Okay, who's doing it? Oh, I can't tell you. I can't name any names because I'm a pussy. But they're attacking my friends that tell me the aliens are real. And by the way, you know, I'm more or less convinced that this guy's getting all his information from this same group of wackadoos. It's Travis Taylor. It's Gary Nolan, right? Grush. And they're all in on this together. Carl Nell, right? And notice that none of them have any goddamn evidence, but they cite each other as evidence. Carl Nell cited people like Elizondo and Grush as his evidence. Grush is citing people like Eric Davis and Elizondo as his evidence. It's all one big stupid circle jerk of nothing burger. But let's go to the next clip. And then there's some startling information. We're going to talk a little bit about government employees being wackadoos. But before we get to that, let me share the next clip. And again, this is fair use. We're educating the public and critiquing the video that we are sharing. This is covered under fair use. Retired U.S. Navy Rear Admiral Tim Gallaudet says individuals within the government have communicated with UAP-related non-human intelligence, and he's sure of it. Are we getting tired of the trust me, bro, declarative statements with no evidence involved? I know I am. Carl Nell, just last week, we definitely are being visited by aliens. There's no doubt. Now this guy, we're definitely communicating with aliens. There's no doubt. Neither of them provided any evidence to back up these fantastic claims. Isn't that convenient?
Do you think we've had communications with non-human intelligence?
I'm sure of it. I'm sure of it. Just based on all this data and everything we're talking about.
Just based on all this data. What data? Where's the data that we're communicating with extraterrestrial intelligences? Can I see the data? Can you publish the data? And by the way, I've read his paper for the Soul Foundation. You know what his paper for the Soul Foundation is? A bunch of speculation, a bunch of philosophical ramblings and nonsense, but almost zero evidence of anything in the 20-page paper, white paper, whatever paper, I don't know. I think that's interesting, right? Oh, we're definitely communicating with extraterrestrials. Why didn't you put it in the paper for the Soul Foundation? Why don't you put that data that proves we're communicating with extraterrestrials in the paper that you wrote for the Soul Foundation? That would be something. I'd love to see data that proves conclusively that we're communicating with extraterrestrials or non-human intelligence. But again, that's not what we get. We get, trust me, bro.
What do you think those communications would look like?
I don't know. But I mean, actually,
so there's all this data that we're communicating with extraterrestrials. Then he's asked, what would that communication look like? Oh, I don't know. Well, why don't you go to the data you say you have, Admiral?
If you look at Diana Pasulka's book,
and now he's quoting directly Diana Pasulka. Again, circle of confirmation. Again, self-licking ice cream cone. Again, all of these wackadoos just reinforce each other's delusions, and they cite each other's evidence-free claims as evidence. It's not evidence if the claims are evidence-free.
Again, encounters this one former NASA engineer. He called the crashes that were retrieved donations.
Yeah, and I believe that was an anonymous source. Someone in the live chat can correct me if I'm wrong. In Diana Pasulka's book, a former NASA engineer claims that the UAP crashes are donations. The non-human intelligences are just donating spaceships to us. Again, that is an incredible, sensational statement to make. And if true, would be world-changing. Is there evidence of that claim, or is it just some guy said that? No, it's some guy said that. There's no evidence to back up that claim. So far, he's talked about all this data we're communicating with aliens. When asked what would the communication look like, oh, I don't know. I guess there's no data. And now he's going to cite an evidence-free anonymous source in a book who said some things as his evidence. Is that your data? Evidence-free claims from a book?
That's a form of communication right there.
Yeah.
So I don't know the nature of the communication. And
wait, he doesn't know the nature of the communication, but he said he had all this data that supports that we're communicating. How can you have all this data that supports we're communicating with aliens, but you don't know what that communication would look like, and you don't know the nature of the communication? One of these things is not like the other. Like, something doesn't make sense here. It's talking in circles.
In who was doing the communicating, but I am pretty sure from what I've
wait, there's all this data that we're communicating with aliens, but he doesn't know who was doing the communicating. I'm just confused at this point.
Seen from my sources,
his sources. Will he name his sources? No, he's not going to name any sources. So it's, I have sources, and look at my credentials. I'm a former Navy admiral. Trust me, bro. I have sources that say we're communicating with the aliens. Great. Can I talk to those sources? Can I vet those sources? Because I know Shawn Ryan's not gonna. Oh, no, you won't tell us who your sources are. Isn't it convenient how many of these clowns claim they have all these sources that give them secret information and knowledge that's world-changing, but they can't share any of those sources? Kind of like Dave Grush. Oh, I interviewed 40 people that convinced me that aliens are here. Great. Can we have the list of them? Can we see their names? Can we vet them? Can we interview them? Oh, no, you can't. It's one big circle jerk, friends.
Sure, highly, that's occurred. Now, with who? Parts of the government or just individuals? And actually, by the way, if you just, when you say we, if you mean the U.S. government, yeah.
Do you think
if you mean we, do you mean the U.S. government has communicated with aliens? Yeah. Okay, what's your evidence for that? You said you had all this data. Oh, I can't show you. Okay, you said you had all these sources, and your sources tell you this is true. Can we see the sources? Oh, no, I can't. Oh, and there's an active government disinformation campaign to discredit UFO people, but I can't tell you who those are either. Are we seeing a pattern yet with this guy? I think I have seen a pattern with this guy, but it gets better or worse depending on your point of view, I suppose. Because now this guy who won't share any sources or proof of his wild, wacky claims. And by the way, if you think these claims are wild and wacky, just hold on to your disclosure boner, dumbass, because I'm going to show you that this guy is a complete total wackadoo, and so is his wife, apparently, which is sad because he's involving his children in his delusional, evidence-free belief system about the paranormal. We'll get into that in a moment. Let me share the next clip video. Yeah. So this guy is going to, this is from Skyfire News. I want to thank everybody who makes these clips because it saves me a lot of time, regardless of what I think of some of the sources. UAP James, I have no problem with him, but he's sort of on the credulous side, and so is Skyfire News. But what they do is, I think, is a valuable service, especially to people like me. In any case, this guy is going to start a UFO degree that you can buy and have a master's degree in UFO studies. This guy who doesn't know that Lou Elizondo was not part of the UAP task force. This guy who says aliens are definitely communicating with us, but won't show us any proof or evidence of it. This guy who says there's an active disinformation campaign to discredit UFO people, but won't share any evidence of that. And wait till you see some of his other claims. If you buy a degree from this guy, you deserve to get scammed. I'm just going to say that. And by the way, any degree that is not from an accredited university is completely and totally worthless. It's not worth the paper it's printed on. There, I said it. So you too can go buy a UFO degree from Danny Sheehan for $16,000, or he's selling a master's or a fake master's or a fake PhD. If these don't come from accredited universities, they're worthless. But now we have another person besides Danny Sheehan who wants to cash in on selling people UFO degrees. Awesome.
I mean, even working with a group to establish a master's degree program in UAP studies. So that's happening. And then so that I think that's what's going to remove the stigma, and it's already occurring.
What's that going to entail? The master's degree on UAP studies? Yeah,
well, really, I'd love to see a physics-based or engineering-based one, but that information is not out there yet in terms of...
That information is not out there yet. So they can't teach us anything about the physics, even though all of these people are claiming that we've been in possession of alien technology for decades and decades now. They can't share any information about the actual physics of how these things work or operate, or their power systems or their propulsion systems. So what can they teach you? Philosophical nonsense, humanities-based philosophical nonsense. That's what he's going to sell you. And you get a master's degree that you can hang on your wall and fool your stupid friends into thinking that you have a master's degree.
It was a crash retrieval. This one's going to be a humanities-based one that looks at some of the cultural and anthropological and societal issues around UAP, which there are many.
In other words, philosophical ramblings with no evidence, no proof. What are you teaching people a master's degree in? I just don't get it. I don't get it. But that's basically how he's going to, one of the ways that I believe this individual is going to try to cash in on UFOs.
I mean, if we're being visited by other civilizations with huge technology powers, what does that mean for society and everything else that could be possible with that?
So what you get in his degree program, essentially, as he's admitting here, you get speculation. That's what we're going to get. We're going to get speculation and philosophical ramblings about, the societal implications of extraterrestrials visiting us on Earth or whatever. Just ridiculous. We want to thank Rotary Motion for a kind and generous £2 super chat. And thank you also for being a member. We want to remind our audience, number one, we read every single super chat. We thank everybody for their support. If you become a member of our YouTube channel during the live show, we give you a shout out and thank you as well. If you send a Patreon, or excuse me, if you send a PayPal pledge, just be sure to add a note and include your chat room user ID. Any message you want us to read, we read everybody's super chats and super stickers, and we really appreciate your support. Thank you, Rotary Motion, for getting us started tonight in praising the cash. First one of the night.
Praise the cash, praise the cash, praise the cash.
That's right. We are praising it. This admiral is going to be trying to praise the cash, I think, right? Let's move on to our next piece, which is, this is where it gets interesting. I talked at the beginning of the broadcast about how just because somebody is a high-ranking government official does not mean that they are immune to falling down the rabbit hole and getting convinced all this stuff is real. And isn't it interesting that this admiral in particular, it's not just UFOs and aliens. He's made all kinds of absolutely wackadoo claims, so much so to the extent that I would judge or confirm him to be a paranormal wackadoo. I always say this, like, stay in your lane, right? You really should stay in your lane. And this, of course, comes this wonderful piece of information. I've shared it in the live chat. I've shared it in the description of this video or podcast. We've shared all of our sources here. Tim Gallaudet's haunted house and psychic daughter featured on the Discovery Channel. In an interview with Project Unity, former Navy top admiral Tim Gallaudet claims his young daughter is a, quote, medium, unquote, who sees spirits and can communicate with them. He also says his wife and daughters appeared on a pseudoscience reality show called The Dead Files in 2016. Gallaudet's wife claims their house is haunted by violent poltergeists. This kind of explains why he's so quick to believe the other UFO wackadoos, because he's got a lot of wacky beliefs. Gallaudet says he's taken his young daughter. Wait a minute. Their youngest daughter, 6, thinks ghost monsters are hiding in her room. And both the TV show stars and her parents validate her fantasies as real. Gallaudet says he's taken his young daughter to multiple psychics to try to help her. Mr. Greenstreet goes on to say, I've pulled some clips from the show below, but I won't show the interviews with his daughters since it's so irresponsibly exploitative. And I wonder about this. Was his family paid to go on a television show and talk about their ghosts and things like that? Interesting. Mr. Greenstreet goes on to say, it should be noted that Gallaudet is close friends with Jay Stratton, another retired Navy official who claims his house is also haunted by violent poltergeists who attacked his children. Watch my New York Post report on Stratton's hauntings. Both Stratton and Gallaudet have been lobbying credulous congressional leaders to write and pass new laws about UFOs and the paranormal. And this is where it's a problem, because these are the people that are demanding that our elected leaders pass new laws to study UFOs and aliens, and I guess poltergeists and demons too. I mean, but isn't it interesting? So, you know, the game being played here is that, oh, this guy's a former Navy admiral. He's very credible. So if he says aliens are communicating with us, it must be true. Well, he's got all kinds of way. He's seeing ghosts. This guy sees ghosts, and him and his wife are wackadoos. There, I said it. Okay? I'm not pulling any punches anymore. These people are wackadoos. Why should they get to influence Congress? I just, well, let's see what his wife has to say about.
For some reason, things started happening once Cedar turned 3.
Let's talk about that. What's going on?
She has drawn pictures.
What kind of pictures?
I have some right here. This is the man with the brown arms. He lives in her room, in her closet.
Oh, jeez. All right.
Jesus Christ. I can only speak from my own experience as a parent, but not my older son, because he doesn't communicate very well, being nonverbal autistic, but my younger son once thought there was monsters in his closet. And I didn't put him on a television show and exploit him. I explained to him that monsters aren't real, and I showed him that there was nothing in his closet. And I gave him a flashlight so that if he was ever scared of anything in the closet, he could just shine the flashlight and know there was nothing in the closet. And that's how I dealt with a similar parenting issue. But apparently, Mr. Gallaudet decided that he and his wife should make some money on a paranormal television show, exploiting their children who see monsters in their closets.
My youngest daughter had real serious behavioral issues, and to sum it all up, she is like many of these medium that you see. She can see spirits. She saw them all the time. And there are people that have this ability to tap into whatever we want to call it, the other side, where people go when they die, whatever that is, the energy that people leave behind. There's a lot of ways to explain it. And
so instead of getting his daughter from some counseling or psychological assistance with her delusions, this guy reinforced her delusions.
My wife and I,
him and his wife reinforced the child's delusions and fantasies.
Through this experience, to just be able to help her, we came to meet several mediums who are incredibly gifted. There's one on TV, Long Island medium, Teresa Caputo. It became real.
Teresa Caputo. We did a whole deep dive on Teresa Caputo, who is a complete and total fraud. She's not a real psychic. She's not a real medium. She's not communicating with dead people. She scams people. And this guy just cited her as one of those talented mediums that was going to help him with his daughter's delusional fantasies. Great. This is looking great. This guy's credibility just went in the toilet. I'm going to say that again. This man is not credible. He's as credible as a crackhead.
Real to us, and it opened our minds. And I don't have all the answers, but I know what we experienced. I know what she saw. And it was even in the show I shared with you. It's called Dead Files. We had Amy, I forgot her last name, but she came on and did a show with my daughter called You Will Be Mine. And our listeners can look for that.
Yeah, this is great. This is a real problem. So I guess all you people that got disclosure boners, because this guy said that we're definitely communicating with aliens, are you losing the disclosure boner yet? You should be. This guy is not credible. Look at this wacky belief system that he has. And by the way, this is the guy that wants to sell you a degree in UFO studies.
There's like a lot of darkness here. Even if the sun is shining, it's not really shining. It's like stormy and dark.
Oh my God, a psychic medium. Awesome.
And there's all of these unresolved issues. There's a lot of fighting.
Welcome to the land of wackadoo make-believe, friends. Welcome to the land of wackadoo make-believe. This is your new UFO messiah, a complete and total wackadoo that believes that mediums are real and people talk to dead people. Awesome.
There's a lot of dead around.
Oh, the medium said there's a lot of dead people around. Awesome.
Karen, when we spoke on the phone, you were pretty upset about what's going on in the house.
Yes. Most people think I'm crazy, but it's hard to do battle with an enemy you don't understand.
Okay. Give me a list of what you guys are experiencing here.
There are things moving around the house. We're hearing voices. We've all had nightmares. We've seen full apparitions. Now things are getting physical.
Wow.
Now, who's living in the house here with you?
Wow. So this is this admiral's wife. Awesome.
My oldest daughter, Laurel, who's 14. My middle daughter, Aspen, who's 8. And my youngest daughter, Cedar, who is 6.
We spoke on the phone. I know you're married.
Yes, my husband works for the Department of Defense, and he travels a lot. So he's rarely here.
Okay.
For some reason, Things started happening
That's
once
something
Cedar
else.
turned 3.
Let's talk about that. What's going on?
She has drawn pictures.
What kind of pictures?
I have some right here.
Yeah, this is one of those things like, okay, the child drew a picture and says there's a monster in her closet. Oh, this is very disturbing to me from the perspective of a parent.
This is the man with the brown arms. He lives in her room in her closet.
Oh, jeez, all right.
Wow. My thanks to Stephen Greenstreet for sharing these clips and enlightening us as to the wackadoo belief system that many of these people seem to be, subscribing to. Oh, I haven't seen you in some time, V. I absolutely believe in realms and realms within realms, but putting it on TV somehow cheapens it. Welcome. Haven't seen you in a long time. Good to see you here. Yeah, I mean, I believe in the afterlife, but I'm not sure what else I believe insofar as ghosts and mediums. I don't know. Maybe it's just my own personal experience. Having studied and busted so many fake psychic mediums, I just think it's horseshit. But I definitely believe in an afterlife. So that's about it for the clips that I have. But we're going to get into the actual interview. Let me just cue that up here. And we want to take a moment to welcome in everybody in the live chat. We've got great attendance tonight. I wanted to make sure that I mention a big thank you to all the people who have been gifting memberships. If you haven't already, be sure to smash that subscribe button, because there are kind and generous people that have bought hundreds of YouTube channel memberships have been gifted. And for those unaware, when somebody gifts a YouTube channel membership, YouTube somehow randomly, I don't know if it's a random number generator, but they essentially give out those gifted memberships to people who are subscribers but not yet channel members. And many people, many people, since so many memberships have been gifted, have been thanking me. Don't thank me, thank the people gifting you the free membership. But we do hope once you get that free month that you will throw a couple of bucks in our hat and remain a member. And because of this influx of so many new YouTube channel members and Patreon supporters, by the way, we've been very blessed with a great deal of financial support in this last month. Probably our best month on that end since the beginning of our show. So thank you all so much. Be sure to hit the subscribe button. You might get a free membership. And we thank all of you who are gifting those memberships. And because of that, I have started a new thing, which is I've added to my weekly work week here that we're going to do the live shows we do. I'm trying to work on production videos, but I'm also going to make one extra video a week for you YouTube channel members and Patreon supporters. I feel obligated to do so since we have so many new members. Earlier today, I've uploaded to Patreon and to our YouTube channel member section a 1 hour long video that is actually 10 of our new Truth Seekers quick dive. So many people have asked me to do quick videos instead of these 2 or 3 hour streamathons, and I get it. Sometimes people have interest in a subject, but they don't want to spend 3 hours. So we've developed a new show format called Truth Seekers Quick Dives. I've completed the first 10 of them, and I've uploaded them all as one video today, both to Patreon and to our YouTube channel member section. So let me know what you think of the new format. We'll be adding a section to our YouTube channel here called Truth Seekers Quick Dives. And those videos are 5 or 10 minute memberships, or excuse me, 5 or 10 minute videos about various subjects of the paranormal and conspiracy land topics. Hope you enjoy them. Let me know what you think. And there we go. There's Thomas Robinson, just gifted 5 more memberships, and he gifted a bunch yesterday as well. Like I said, everybody's been so generous. This has been a great month for us as far as support. We are a viewer-supported show, and we depend on kind and generous people like Thomas Robinson here, who's also a member himself. He's giving out memberships like they're candy. We appreciate you, Mr. Robinson. Thanks for appreciating us and helping us to... That's right. We are praising it very well tonight. So we're going to get into the rest of this video here, the rest of the interview. And again, we're citing fair use. I'm not sure how much of this we're going to go through. I think the juiciest bits and most important bits were covered in these clips, but I still want to sample some more, and we'll do some commentary. We'll take comments and questions from the live chat. And you can help me make this a transformative work. While we're listening to this, put comments you want me to share on the screen in all capital letters, and I will do so. I'll read some of your comments as we go through this. Oh, Shawn Ryan, he gives out gift bags.
I'm waiting for this. There you go.
Any guesses?
Gummies?
Hey, good guess.
Oh, how about that?
There they are. Made in the USA.
My youngest daughter, I'm going to be her favorite person.
Really?
Oh, yeah, she loves these.
I'll give you some more for the ride home.
Okay. Fantastic. Thanks.
Did he just say are those pot gummies or regular gummies? I'm confused. I know that Shawn Ryan is talking about selling shrooms soon. That's weird.
But I also have a subscription account on Patreon. And so one of the perks that we give our patrons who are our top supporters, we give them an opportunity to ask the current guest questions. And so there's a couple of good ones here. This one.
That's great. So Shawn Ryan is pay to play. If you want to ask my guests questions, just give me some money. Nice.
One is from
It's very classy.
Greg. Are there other areas that have more common UFO activity besides the California and Florida coasts?
From what I understand, yes, there are. There's certain places in around the globe that are hotspots. And I don't have that all mapped out myself, but it's a lot. The Scientific Coalition for UAP Studies, SCU, they're a pretty credible research organization, and they've done that.
No, they're not.
I think there's some places in South America and where else in the Pacific Northwest possibly, but there are. This is documented, and you could do a Google search and find them.
Interesting. This is from Lester Dodson. What effects do underwater thermal vents and underwater volcanic activity have on ocean temperatures, ocean currents, and the overall world climate?
That's interesting. That's a good question. I don't think hydrothermal vents are a major factor in changes in the climate.
Thanks,
but they're very interesting. They hold a habitat that is super extreme, high temperatures, very toxic with metals and minerals, but organisms have evolved to live and thrive in those environments. And it's really interesting regarding this current topic because of UAP, because it's basically, we already have aliens in our oceans when you go to those places. They're some of them don't have any, they're all white because they don't need any coloration since it's so dark down there. Giant clams, for example, and mussels, as well as other types of tube worms.
One second.
Really weird sea life.
No, the gifted memberships, for those who ask, Trolley Troll. If you get a gifted membership, it's just for the month that we're in. So if you want to continue to be a YouTube channel member, you're going to have to pay your own $5 next month. That's generally, I believe that is how it works. Yeah.
Life. If you go and look at some hydrothermal vent imagery or expeditions that I have friends who've done that.
Wow. How deep are these?
Oh, shoot. Well, the first one that was discovered.
By the way, I have no problem for him to be talking about ocean science. He's an oceanographer by education, experience, and trade. But when we get into ghosts, demons, and, aliens, kind of strains his credibility more than a little.
Was off the Mid-Atlantic Ridge, I believe, and my buddy, Robert Ballard, the discoverer of the Titanic, he was one of the ones who found him. He was working with the French, and I think there might be around 2 miles deep or so. It varies. It varies.
Wow. And then the last question, which actually we had kind of spoken about before we started rolling the cameras, but I have a lot of patrons that patrons that are curious on your thoughts to the UFO whistleblower series that we did. I think it was right about a year ago.
Right. That was a really compelling series.
He just called it a really compelling series. There were complete and total wackadoos in that series with no evidence. By the way, No one in that series had any evidence to share. Oh, it's very compelling, though. Evidence-free stories? Sign me up. And by the way, at least Michael Herrera, his entire story that he told on the Shawn Ryan show and at Stephen Greer's high-priced disclosure event was blown to shit by, I believe, his commanding officer, who came out and said none of that happened. Unless he went off on a secret mission without the rest of his group that I was in command of, Michael Herrera is full of shit. And Tim Gallaudet here just said, oh, that was very compelling. You mean somebody lying to a huge platform that like Shawn Ryan has, that's compelling?
So I've been in this UAP topic for a little over about 2 years. And I initially...
He's only been into the UAP topic for 2 years. I'm sorry, but that's nowhere near enough to get a handle on anything. I believe when I was 2 years in, I just believed everybody. That's kind of the way it goes. The first few years you're in, you kind of just believe that all these people are telling the truth. You don't dig beneath the surface of the claims. You don't demand evidence. You don't vet sources. So he's in the very credulous stage of being into this topic. But someday maybe he'll wake up and realize that it's one big circle jerk. We also want to thank Lucy Day and Mike Larry and many of the other people who have been gifting memberships. Thank you, Lucy Day, who answers the question that was asked about the memberships. It expires after 1 month. Thank you. Great. Let's continue.
Actually, like Michael Herrera, the Marine, where he saw paramilitary forces from some agency.
He just mentioned, oh, wow. Yeah, that Michael Herrera guy, Tim Gallaudet is not educated enough to understand that Michael Herrera's entire story got blown to shit. It's a fake story. He was telling tall tales, Mr. Admiral. You're going to sell me a degree in UFOs and you don't even know whose story gets busted as completely and totally fake, but you're going to sell me a degree? Awesome.
And that whole story, originally I would have dismissed that as can't be. Our government doesn't do that. Mm-hmm. But the more I'm learning and that's coming out, and I could talk about some examples, I wouldn't be surprised if there was credibility to that.
But his commanding officer said none of that happened. Michael Herrera's entire story blown to shit.
Because, for example, there's a book out there by a guy named Greg Bishop called Project Beta. Have you ever heard of it?
I haven't.
This is a really good book right now. It's a
Project Beta.
That's Project where he's getting his information from.
It's the subtitle is something like the story of Paul Benowitz and the evolution of the modern UFO myth. And what it's about is
this is where he's getting his information. He's not getting his information from personal experience. He's never seen anything himself, even while he was an admiral. He's getting his information from books about things like Serpo and Benowitz and Doty. Great. And he's going to sell me a degree in UFO studies. He's only been here for 2 years. I've been here for decades. I'm not selling degrees. Maybe I should start. Truth Seekers University, bitches! Praise the cash! Yeah, we might do that. We might do Truth Seekers University. I'm going to sell you a master's degree and a PhD in Wackadoo translating. All right? You can become a professional Wackadoo translator like me. And I won't even charge you the $16,000 that Danny Sheehan is charging. I'll maybe just $2,000. I think that's fair. Do you want to become a professional Wackadoo translator like me and be able to translate what these Wackadoos are talking about? $2,000. Praise the cash.
Civilian physicist who was on contract to work at for the Air Force, I believe, and ultimately he was one of these people who was a civilian researcher in the UAP in the New Mexico area where that's a hot spot. And the Air Force deliberately deceived him and exploited him and even broke into his house to make him believe that there was going to be an imminent alien invasion. And he basically nearly went crazy.
He did go crazy. And that's the Paul Benowitz story. And he's talking about Richard Doty, who is now, even though he drove a man essentially crazy with disinformation. Richard Doty is now the darling of Twitter Spaces, right? And everybody hangs on every word. Richard Doty has been involved in more fake UFO stories than virtually anyone, including Serpo, probably MJ12, the Aviary, the Paul Benowitz story, the Dulce base, and more. All of that came from Richard Doty. Great.
And the Air Force did that deliberately. And
what?
Yeah, yes. The book is really good to read too. You can read it like in a day.
Or you could just watch the movie Mirage Men.
It's all happened. The main perpetrator in the Air Force is a guy named Richard Doty. He's quite well known in the UAP circles, and that's what he did. And
now he's the darling of UFO conventions, Twitter Spaces, and podcasts. And he's on Mr. Pfister's show. And nothing says credible UFO show host like getting a known paid government disinformation agent to co-host your show with you, right? You just gotta laugh sometimes. Keep yourself from crying here in the UFO circus, land of the UFO wackadoos.
I can see that happening right now. We could talk about this later, but you know this DoD UFO office called AARO?
Mm-hmm.
So they recently released a report.
Real quick, what does AARO stand for again?
All Domain Anomaly Resolution Office. And their report was looking at the historical kind of story of the U.S. government's UAP involvement. Congress directed them to do this report, and they basically didn't do their job. It was a lot of errors. They missed a lot.
Yeah, big surprise. This guy didn't like the AARO report, because the AARO report basically calls all of his friends and all of the people that he's getting his information from a bunch of wackadoos with no evidence. So he doesn't like that report because it reveals that his friends are all lying scumbags with no evidence.
And
right?
One of the prominent UAP authorities on national security, Chris Mellon, wrote a...
He's not a prominent authority. He ran a literal techno scam. Were you aware of that? Were you aware that Christopher Mellon, it's been alleged, ran a techno investment scam that defrauded people out of millions of dollars? He's an authority figure. He stood next to a picture of a balloon and claimed it was an alien spacecraft, you dumbass. These are your friends. They're all about as credible as crackheads holding gas cans, begging you for gas money to get home. A prominent national authority on UAPs. Since when? Since when are people who stand next to pictures of balloons and claim they're alien spacecraft prominent figures, national authorities? And since when are people who promise people spaceships and claim they have possession, their group has possession of alien spaceship parts, and solicit millions of dollars of investment and then waste it all and not do anything with the money? Since when are they national prominent figures, right? This is the land of make-believe, friends.
Scathing expose, if you will, on all the errors in the report and how they didn't meet the congressional mandate. And when you read that, and you can tell they're obviously obfuscating. They are deliberately not saying what they know and saying things that are patently untrue in this report that Congress directed. And so Chris wrote a great article in the debrief about it and all the flaws. And when you put that together and look at that, you can just see that is active disinformation. They're not acknowledging what they know, and they're actually putting out false information.
Oh, that's some bullshit. So do you know how much disinformation and misinformation and completely and totally false information Christopher Mellon put out with TTSA? Do you know how much completely and totally provably fake information the debrief has put out? You know, this is the problem. These people all live in a delusional fantasy world where facts don't matter. Only the delusion matters, and anything that you can say or do to support the delusion is what's important.
Why are they putting out false information?
So this is really it makes sense if you worked in the government at a high level like me. Who's they? Who's they?
There's always some mysterious they. You ever notice that?
Executive branch.
Oh, the executive branch.
The National Security Council, upon direction from the president, and the Department of Defense and the intelligence community, the Office of Director of National Intelligence, they're the ones who could have the say. Should we disclose or not? And the Arrow is just doing their bidding, because that executive branch, those bodies, they set the policy of the administration. I saw this in my job under Secretary of Commerce. The Trump administration wanted to do certain things, and we did those things. We actually did a lot of good, and I could talk about that the press never gave us credit for. But that's how it flows. And this administration doesn't.
Yes, the executive branch is the classifying authority. He's right about that. The executive branch of the government is the branch that decides what is classified and what is not. But to equate it's like false equivocation is what he's doing here, because they decide what's classified and what's not. They're lying to us. You could show us evidence that they're lying to us, but you can't and you won't. So this is all speculation. Nice.
Doesn't want to do that. So Arrow is just the mouthpiece. It's the policy at the top level of the executive branch that directs whether they want to disclose or not. Now,
so I guess it's Joe Biden's fault that we don't get alien disclosure then?
It makes a lot of sense because, UFO people want to see it. But if you were Biden, would you want to tell the American public, hey, I can't keep our airspace safe. It's being visited by entities whose intent I don't understand and I can't control it.
What is the evidence that we're being visited, our airspace is being visited by entities? This is the problem with these people. They just make these statements as if they're statements of facts without actually having any facts and evidence to support that, without having any evidence at all to support that what they're saying is a fact. One big circle jerk.
Same for our water space. Do you think he want to announce that to the American people on the verge of the election and say, I'm not doing my job, I can't keep you all safe? I don't think so.
Probably not. But what is the disinformation piece? Why would the Air Force be planting disinformation?
Oh, wow. This is, thank you very much. Sandy Smith has been a member for 19 months and says, you can always purchase a membership for $5. Come and join us. Yeah, we appreciate all of you people who threw a couple bucks in our hat every month to keep us honest. I don't want to sell out like this Shawn Ryan clown and start doing the UFO circle jerk for cash. And you guys are keeping me honest. Thanks for helping us to praise the cash, Sandy Smith.
Praise the cash, praise the cash, praise the cash.
All right, we'll continue our journey here.
Misinformation. Researchers' homes.
Well, that was back.
You got to love the fact that people who keep getting caught lying and keep getting caught selling completely and totally 100% provably fake stories cry and complain about government disinformation. There is disinformation in the UFO community, but it's coming from people like his friends, Gary Nolan and Elizondo and Mellon and all these other people. They're the ones putting the disinformation out there and the fake information. But we'll blame the government when they don't confirm our delusions.
Then I'd be hard pressed to see them do that today, but that's it. They went out of control. They were basically not aligned with the Constitution. And they did that because now they don't say it in the book. The book just talks.
1 second. I forgot one. I apologize. Bunker Buster with a kind and generous $2.99 super chat. We thank you for your kindness, generosity, and support. And thanks for being a member, Bunker Buster, and for helping us to.
Praise the cash, praise the cash, praise the cash.
Thank you very much. Very kind of you, Bunker Buster.
About the facts, but it's the same thing again that's happening today. They don't want the public to know that there really is a crash retrieval program and that we are monitoring UAP in our airspace and water space.
What is the evidence of this, though? There is a crash retrieval program. Well, you were an admiral. Wouldn't you have been cleared to know about this stuff? Couldn't you just share some evidence that there is indeed a crash retrieval program? And I'll say this till I'm blue in the face. Every government has a crash retrieval program. Look at Project Moondust and others. But usually it's adversarial technology. If a Russian drone goes down, if a Chinese spy satellite goes down, or anything like that, they go and they retrieve it. That's what a lot of these people, when they say there's definitely a crash retrieval program, they're right. But those programs are not centered around aliens. It's adversarial technology. That's what we're picking up sometimes. Certainly, we'd want to look at Russian drones or Chinese space technology, Russian space technology. So yes, there's a crash retrieval program, but there's no evidence that it revolves around or has anything to do with aliens and non-human intelligence. That's what everybody misses.
And we can't control their actions, and we don't fully understand their intentions. And that's a dangerous thing to leak to the public. And so they are deliberately falsifying it and exploiting people, making them appear as wackos, thus creating a stigma behind the whole scene.
Yeah, I would think that if you're telling your daughter that she is indeed seeing ghosts and your wife is seeing ghosts and you're making all these, definitive statements with absolutely no evidence, you're making yourself a wacko. People who aren't wackos, if they say these things, they have evidence or proof. But all we're getting from this guy is trust me, bros.
Which has prevented serious scientific study. And that's why I've joined Galileo, Americans for Safe Aerospace, and the Soul Foundation to advance the scientific study of the phenomenon.
Oh,
Interesting.
So he's in with Avi Loeb, who sold a completely and totally fake story in a book about a Muamua being an alien spacecraft. It's still on Amazon, even though the scientific consensus on planet Earth was that he was completely and totally wrong, and it was just a rock. It wasn't an alien spacecraft, but he's still selling that book. But this guy is joined with Avi Loeb and also Ryan Graves. Like I said, it's one big group of people with this delusion, jerking each other off and telling each other stories, but nobody has any actual evidence. But what there is evidence that all of these people have been involved in fakery, fraudery, and deception in order to personally profit from the UFO topic. Awesome.
So the disinformation is just to discredit whoever is
that's exactly
getting
it.
into the subject.
That's right. And it's happening overtly today. That office is doing it. And you see it all around the media now. There's just a lot of there are individuals who I will not name who I believe are getting paid, but every day they get out online.
You're right.
And they're well
Welcome to
known
the
in this
show.
UAP community.
Oh, here's the disinformation.
And their number
claim.
one job is to discredit these national authorities, these people like Lou Elizondo.
He's not a national
who was
authority.
with the task force, the UAP task force.
No, he wasn't.
I've met
Wrong.
and trust and know, and he is 100% who he says he is, and what he says he's seen and knows.
I agree.
have total confidence in people like him. He's getting he's an active target.
Yes, Patty's boss would love and appreciate
people discrediting him.
her
and
degree in
others
UFO
too.
studies.
Interesting. Is there anybody I should be looking out for?
God, Doty again.
Gosh, I don't study this like other people do. Some people they do.
Yeah, you're right.
They really spend a lot of time on this.
With a government disinformation agent. Awesome.
Yeah,
I'll ask you
I'm just not
offline.
going to name names because I don't know. I don't want to do that. Yeah,
I understand. I'll ask you offline.
No,
Let's
he
get
knows
into
nothing about this
the
topic, the
Galileo
hydrogen
project.
yeah.
That sounds fascinating. How did you get involved in that?
Well, again, I had left the government, and so the background is this. One of my jobs in the Navy is I was the superintendent of the U.S. Naval Observatory in Washington, D.C.
Maybe.
So
And
it's known for two things. It's where the vice president lives. He lives in the house of the former superintendent. So I didn't get that house when I came in. The vice president was there. But also it's this unit that has been historically
I
been
agree.
mapping the stars for the U.S.
Yeah.
for the purpose of navigation. Ships of the Age of Sail, our original ships, the six
Total
frigates,
wackadoo in
they
charge of the
navigated using
Navy.
celestial navigation.
Scary.
And that's how evolved to modern day star mapping, which is used for satellite navigation. So consider this: if GPS tells you where it is,
That's interesting.
or you are,
So he doesn't
how
really
does
need the money.
GPS know
then.
where it is?
William
The
Ronald.
constellation. They reference themselves to the stars in our galaxy that are relatively fixed because they're so far away.
Snowflaking ice cream
So that
cone. Our
you
checks are in the
you
mail.
create something called a celestial reference frame, and that is the coordinate system that satellites navigate off of precisely, and then therefore could tell you where you are. So
Thanks
we
for
updated
being
all
here,
the star
Lynn.
positions.
for
The universe
being
is
here. Thanks for
expanding, so
being
we
a
have to
member.
make new catalogs every so often. That's the observatory. Bottom line is that I got to know a lot of astrophysicists, and I learned a lot of cosmology, and I realized the universe is so giant. We'd be arrogant to think that we're the only species that's evolved to travel between celestial bodies.
Boy, where have
And
we heard that
so,
talking point
we have
before?
100 to 400 billion stars in the Milky Way galaxy, and there are over 100 billion galaxies in the observable universe. That's just crazy. So I was open to that. And then when I left the government, I decided I'll join Galileo, because
I would be,
Galileo,
if not for my wonderful wife.
under Avi Loeb at Harvard,
He's the one with the
he
good
is
job.
developing a network of observatories,
Thank God he's
telescopes, and other
retired.
sensors
Yeah, I wouldn't want
to
this
look for
guy in charge
UAP
of
in the
anything for the Navy.
near
He's
Earth
back
atmosphere.
again.
And so he's published on several books on this topic.
He's
And
talking
I
about
love
his
the way he
organization,
thinks.
though,
He's
Patty.
total scientific approach. And
Yeah, I'm
being
glad
an
you're here.
astronomer and
Yeah,
understanding
Lynn,
the
always good to see you.
scales that I just
Remember.
talked about in terms of space and time, 14 billion year old universe, you have to think, okay, in the Earth, we have evolved. We're pretty new on the scene. The Earth's been around for like 4 billion years, and we've only been humans on the scene for not even a million. And so we occupy the sliver of time in the whole scale of the Earth.
Again, philosophical ramblings. That's what we get from all of these people. These same exact talking points I'm sure, were used by Elizondo. Well, there's so many stars in the galaxy, and there's so many exoplanets being discovered. It would be stupid to think we're alone in the universe. And they have to do this philosophical rambling nonsense because they don't actually have any real evidence to speak of, right? If you had evidence that aliens were really visiting Earth, why would you waste all this time? And they all do it. They all waste all this time with these philosophical ramblings, and speculation. That's all they have is speculation.
And the universe. And look how fast we've advanced in technology in the even tinier part of the last 100 years.
I've seen a lot during my time as a Navy SEAL and a SEAL.
And here he's got to sell some products. And, no harm in that, I guess.
Laws of physics and the speed of light, but maybe we'll invent that and discover those physics sometime in the future.
Wow.
Yeah, I'm pretty cheap too.
There's so much to cover here.
Yeah, exactly.
But let's start with a little bit of your Navy career. So you're an oceanographer.
Yeah, I don't have
the Navy.
I have a
What
zero
does an oceanographer do?
William Runner.
Right. So I joined the Navy because I wanted to be an oceanographer. It wasn't because I wanted to join the Navy. My dad had been in, and I respected the service, of course, but my passion is in the ocean, and that's really why we're here, because we'll get into the UAP in the ocean later. But I grew up in Southern California. I love to swim and surf, and so I wanted to study the ocean. And so the Naval Academy had a great major, and they had a scholarship to this institution called Scripps Institution of Oceanography. And I wanted to go there and get it. I got that, and then I started doing that work in the Navy. And what it involves is basically knowing everything about the physical ocean and predicting it, waves, currents, how the ocean structure affects acoustic propagation, which is the top consideration in undersea warfare and finding. And
I would think an oceanographer would be a good fit for somebody in the Navy, to help with navigation and ocean currents and other things.
Killing enemy submarines and vice versa, not being killed by an enemy submarine. So that's what oceanographers do for the most part. I work with your community, Navy Special Warfare, for a time because a lot of work with the SEAL delivered vehicles, for example, or anything like a special reconnaissance mission from offshore. That the ton of work they do is dependent upon the ocean, wave heights, currents, temperature. All my SDV buddies would hype out on every mission, and I would never want to do that. My wife was a Navy diver, and it's funny because when I was at the Navy.
By the way, I just wanted to mention that, this Shawn Ryan is really taking advantage. This is clickbait garbage sensationalism. This video is titled Underwater Alien Base. Underwater alien base? When are we going to hear about the underwater alien base? And what evidence and what proof does this retired admiral have of an underground alien base? Really kind of ridiculous to title it that. And then he's just talking about ocean currents and philosophical ramblings and word salad nonsense. Where's the proof of an alien underwater base like you titled your video, Shawn Ryan, like a scumbag who is just here for clicks and views, right? You know, I mean, I have a pretty extreme view. I'm so tired of the YouTube clickbait merchants like Shawn Ryan. I think it should be illegal. I think clickbait titles should be illegal. But that's just, you know, I have a very strong stance on that because, you know, we're trying to do things the honest way here. And we get, you know, and by the way, we get great support here, but we don't make the hundreds of thousands of dollars of YouTube ad revenue that these clickbait merchants make. It's ridiculous.
SEAL headquarters. I had a good buddy who had formerly been in the SDV teams, and he knew my wife, and they had these mutual conversations together. Whenever we got had parties or whatnot, because my wife had been a Navy diver, and Bruce had been a SDV operator, and they would always just talk about hating to be cold now after all those missions. But anyways, yeah. So just helping operators in any field, whether it be surface Navy, submarine, SEALs, know the ocean and predict it so they can plan their missions more effectively.
Then you went on, you were flag officer at the Pentagon.
Yeah.
What were you doing there?
Well, I was the oceanographer of the Navy. That's the top oceanographer and meteorologist and hydrographer, advising the chief of naval operations on everything that my community of officers did for the Navy. So I was in charge.
By the way, Shawn Ryan is another retired military person cashing in on UFOs. He's hosting some big liars and scammers and grifters. He's all chips in on cashing in on UFOs. And, you know, if you see some of his other videos, they don't do nearly as well as the UFO ones. So that may explain why he's all chips in on hosting UFO wackadoos. It gets views, especially when you clickbait titles like Underwater Alien Base. Admiral Tim tells us about the underwater alien base. 6
of our oceanographic ships that are all around the world doing collecting ocean data and mapping the seafloor. So this is an interesting thing. You see these pictures of the Earth, and sometimes you'll see like Google Earth ocean features, and you think the seafloor is all mapped, and the fact is it's not. We've not even mapped 25% of the world's seafloor to a modern standard, meaning multi-beam sonar and GPS navigation.
Is that the proof there's an underwater alien base that we haven't mapped it? Absence of evidence is not evidence of absence, I guess.
That's 75% of the Earth's seafloor is basically uncharted territory. And it's even crazier for the volume of the ocean. Barely 5% of the ocean volume has ever been explored with a remotely operated vehicle.
5%?
5%, yeah. So like that much volume, we don't even know what's out there.
Aliens are underwater?
So, so I did that for the Navy in the Pentagon. And after I left, I did that at this U.S. agency, which was a U.S. top ocean agency, the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration. And then, you know, since I've left, I'm just consulting for some companies that do that kind of work: ocean tech, weather tech, some other things. Yeah. So there's another thing about this underwater feature off SoCal that I want to dive an ROV on. So what happened is I wanted to get a better look at it, and I happen to know this very famous explorer.
Yes,
his name is Victor Vescovo, and here's the kind of guy Victor is. He's a private equity investor. He was an intelligence officer in the Naval Reserve, and but he made a lot of money on his in his day job, and he is done the Explorers Club Grand Slam, which involves hiking all the 7 peaks, including Everest, and skiing to the North Pole and the South Pole. And Victor, for him, it wasn't enough. So he decided, he learned that all the deep ocean trenches in the world, not all of them have been explored. So he hired a company, bought a ship, built his own submersible, and financed for the sum of about $50 million, an expedition to dive in all the 5 deep trenches. And it's called the 5 Deeps. None of them, that's never happened. So he built a submersible that could go all the way down to the Marianas Trench, the deepest part of the ocean. They call it Challenger Deep. And he's done that 14 times, which is incredible.
We don't know what's down there.
That only been dove twice before.
How deep is it?
35,000 feet. Wow. 10,000 plus meters. Yeah. This is crazy. And so he's done some exploring. What happened is I signed an agreement with him when I was at NOAA, and he agreed to put our scientists on his ship, and give us the data he collected, because he also had a really great sonar, a multi-beam bathymetry sonar. And so we had that agreement. Well, one time after I left the government, I learned that he was going to do a test cruise, if you will, a shakedown for his ship, because he got a new sonar on it, the state of the art. And when I learned he was doing it, and I knew about this one feature that I couldn't explain on the seafloor, I wrote Victor and I said, "Hey,
I agree,
this cruise you're going to go test your sonar at, I have an idea for you, and it's going to be an expedition like no other." And I told him about what I was doing with UAP and my hypothesis on this feature maybe being the result of some interaction with a USO in the seabed. And I said, and I have some other coordinates too. And we gave him some coordinates of areas like where we knew the Nimitz had its encounter, and the Omaha had its encounter, just areas where UAP had been observed, and USOs, and that maybe there's something on the seabed there. And I didn't think he'd write me back. I was curious. I thought he might think I was off my rocker. Well, he wrote me back and just said, "Send me the coordinates." And he went and surveyed all around those areas. Unfortunately, his submersible wasn't ready, and he couldn't get his eyes on that target and see it optically. But he got some high resolution bathymetry with the sonar, and that's what I'm working off of.
Well,
Okay, so his submersible, we couldn't get any images. Is this proof of an alien underwater base?
How long ago did this happen?
Oh, it might have been 2 years, but and that's what's interesting about my point too, is that
another story, just like Gary Nolan. Remember Gary Nolan? Oh, I almost got my hands on a UFO, but then they wouldn't give it to us at the last minute. Oh, we almost found an underwater alien base, but the submersible wasn't ready, so we didn't get you the proof. But trust me, bro, there's an underwater alien base in somewhere. Yeah.
This here is a guy like him, and I told him about possible UAP activity in the ocean, and he didn't blink. He just said, "Send me the coordinates."
Yeah, interesting. Lucy Day says, like Kurt from Theories of Everything, they all sell out. Yeah, to be very honest, like I always try to be, Lucy Day, I have been absolutely shocked and amazed at some of the people that sold out to the UFO circus. Even people that I thought were very skeptical, that would never platform grifters like Ashton Forbes or, whatever. And by the way, I have no problem with somebody platforming somebody who's selling a hoax, as long as you call them on their bullshit like we do here. Unfortunately, I don't see anybody else doing that. I see everybody else doing the circle jerk and getting the views. And you can tell those people because you look at their videos and they get very low views unless they have a grifter on, and then they get big views. So, it's a phenomenon where these guys are just like, well, we need to get views. Let's just host the grifters, right? It's really discouraging. He dispatched some ships, says Self-Licking Ice Cream Cone, to find Wonder Woman's island of hotties. That's about as credible as his alien base story here.
I have one other story, and it relates to this, the ocean, and I guess maybe the credibility of the topic. So I mentioned that I work with the National Academies, and National Academies of Science, Engineering, and Medicine. And they have this body on it called the Ocean Studies Board. And this is the Hall of Fame, or the all-stars of ocean science in our nation. These are just...
Did anybody catch? He said, I have one more story about the ocean. So where's the alien underwater base?
Top tier ocean scientists who get together and we decide upon topics of interest on the ocean, and we agree on studies and help conduct them. And things like the illegal fishing issue I talked about, ocean plastics,
underwater UFO base.
You name it. Well, yeah, I went to them and I pulled together all my info about what Congress had done, the DOD's doing, and NASA has a study team. And I recommended that we get together and do a survey of all the government data sets,
You're right.
Ocean data sets, and just look for anomalous activity and see if there are areas where we know it occurs and they just haven't been looked at. Because remember, I mentioned it's not necessarily the topic or target of most ocean research expeditions. So maybe it's in the data and no one even thought about calling it out. Well, I
Besides, this
wasn't
guy,
sure what they'd say, and they
guy's
did
an
not laugh me
idiot.
out of the room. They actually said,
why would you buy
wow.
a master's degree on any subject from an idiot that has only been studying it for 2 years? Like, hey, I read some books for the last couple of years on UFOs. Now I'm going to sell you a master's degree on UFOs, even though I've only been interested in this topic for 2 years. It makes absolutely no sense. But it is what it is. Arlene Atkins says, if a person presents their show as simply entertainment, fakers are fine. But demanding legitimacy and hosting fakers is crap. Yeah, exactly, Steven, says Dave B. Jester X is here. Haven't seen you in a while. Welcome. I see we got Sequest DSV tonight. Oh, I remember that. My dad loved that show. Yeah. The Hydrogen Line says, Stephen, the vast majority of the ocean floor is simply sand and various sediments. That's why we haven't mapped it completely. For the same reason, we don't map deserts and dunes in great detail either. Wow. Yeah, I think you're probably right, the Hydrogen Line, and thanks for being a member. Billy Hicks says, I think you're getting burnt out with the UFO circle jerk. You should go do a deep dive collaboration into geoengineering instead with Jim Lee, a climate viewer. I guarantee you, being an evidence guy, won't be disappointed. Well, thank you, Billy Hicks, and thank you for your kindness, generosity, and support. Longtime show supporter, helping us too.
Raise the cash, raise the cash, raise the cash.
Definitely. Yeah, I don't know. I'll put it on my list for future projects, Billy Hicks. Thanks for the tip. And we have Greg O'Brien, who is here, who says, I'm just here for the wide open spaces and free air. Well, we thank you for your kindness, generosity, and support, and for helping us to praise the cash. Welcome, Greg O'Brien.
Raise the cash, raise the cash, raise the cash.
Hey, do you know if you buy one of David Wilcock's courses, it costs $333. And if you're dumb enough to buy 2 of them, it's $666. Interesting you would send $6.66. You know that my critics and detractors are going to say something about that, Greg O'Brien, but I'll take your $6 and your 66 cents. Yes. Yes. V says, give him 5 more years and his song will change. I agree. The first couple of years that you get into this topic, you don't know that all these people are lying scumbags, at least in my opinion. I think it takes about 5 years of you digesting everything you can find on this topic from every person making content or books or documentaries about this before you start to realize, like, hey, wait a minute, there's something wrong with this whole thing. It takes about 5 years, I would think, before you start waking up and going, wait a minute, it's all just stories. There's not very much evidence. There's little or no evidence, and all these wackadoos are backing each other up. So maybe he'll change his tune and realize that some of the people he's basing all of his information on are lying scumbags.
Oh, that's interesting, Tim. Maybe you should look into it, but you probably want to include all the classified data sources too, and we don't do that. The group that does that, the academies, is the Naval Studies Board. Ah, okay. So that was great because that was familiar territory for me because I've briefed the Naval Studies Board multiple times on different issues, the Naval Studies Board. And so I went to the chair, who happens to be retired 4-star Admiral Gary Ruffhead, former chief of naval operations when I was in the Pentagon as a 1-star, and my boss. So I knew him, or pardon me, I was a captain at the time. So he's my boss's boss, and I've briefed him before. So I go to him and I say, we have like a Zoom meeting.
Degree in underwater
tell him about all this UAP research that's going on by credible institutions and the government. And he thought, Tim, that is something we should be doing. He said, not only because if we have things in our water space that we don't know about, we should. And he said, but also,
yes,
this is going to help us know a lot more about the ocean. And I remember I talked about knowing more about the ocean is going to help us with China. And he said, we need to know more about the ocean for that very reason, to be better than them. So two purposes he thought we could achieve with that. So where I am with this is that now I have to, that they need government funding. They need a government sponsor to say, hey, Naval Studies Board, do this for us and we'll pay you this much. And so I now have to go back to the government, unfortunately, either the Office of Naval Intelligence, my former command, the Naval Oceanographic Office that I was in charge of, or NOAA, and see if they'll want to do a study. I asked no.
What is all this rambling? I want to hear about the underwater alien base I was promised in this clickbait garbage title by Shawn Ryan.
And they already said, no, we have too many other things on our plate. Not interested. I don't see the DoD or Office of Naval Intelligence doing the same again because of the non-disclosure policy currently that exists in the executive branch. But I'm still gonna ask and still gonna try.
30 minutes
wait to see
in,
what you come up
no
with.
evidence so far.
We'll see what happens.
What was it that? I mean, how did you get involved in this whole UFO UAP thing?
Right. So I've said this story before, but it's worth going at again. First off, as I mentioned, I was a superintendent of the Naval Observatory, so I understood how big the universe was, and I was open-minded to that there could be other life.
There's another 2 hours of this. Has somebody listen? I only checked out the clips and I listened. I previewed like this first half hour. Haven't gone past here. Does he not talk about an alien underwater base, William Runner, through this whole thing, 2.5 hours? And if so, Shawn Ryan, why are you clickbaiting and lying to your whole entire audience that this admiral is going to talk about an underwater alien base in your clickbait title? Gin and Teutonic, the Trinity UFO story is to mock the Trinity. Doesn't matter if you actually in a Trinity or that's what these Dark Masons believe. They call it the mocking of the Trinity. I've never heard that, but I appreciate your opinion. Yeah, let's spend millions looking for underwater alien bases to fund it. We'll blame the Chinese. Yeah, that's what everybody's looking for. Everybody's looking for funding.
Outside of the Earth. And then as a 1-star, I had actually 2 jobs. I had a Pentagon job, and then I also was an operational commander. So there's a 1-star job in Stennis Space Center, Mississippi, called the Commander of the Navy Meteorology and Oceanography Command. And that's all the folks that did what I did. So there's enlisted aerographers that do weather forecasting on aircraft carriers and shore stations. And there's other folks that, again, advise for anti-submarine warfare. And so all these about 3,000 people, civilians in uniform, do things like ocean mapping, weather forecasting, ocean forecasting.
And NOAA
and I was in charge of
weather office. Yeah.
And so I'm in my office that one day. So I was splitting time between the Pentagon and DC and this office in Stennis. And one day I get this email on the Navy Secret Network, SIPRNet, and it's from my boss's operation officer. I was reporting to a 4-star admiral, U.S. Fleet Forces Command. His operations officer was a 2-star.
Probably watched.
And the email was sent to all the subordinate commanders. This is at least 20 flags and SESs. All the deputies are copied on it, and the title of it is "Urgent Safety of Flight Issue," all caps. And the body of the email said, "If any of you know what these are, tell me ASAP. We are having numerous near midair collisions, and if we don't stop it, we're going to have to cancel the exercise." And attached to the video was the now famous leaked Go Fast video. You know it, don't you?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So UAP, F-18 pilots captured video of this UAP zorching over the water. There's no flight control surfaces or propulsion means that are visible. It's just a little round sphere. And then the pilots are all going crazy. And other videos have mentioned how there were multiple ones out there. And
so now he's talking about the Go Fast, which has been confirmed wasn't going fast. It was only doing 40 miles an hour, and it was most likely a balloon. Here's an admiral, former admiral, that doesn't know that basic trigonometry proves that the Go Fast video wasn't going fast. The object portrayed in it was doing 40 miles an hour, which is consistent with a balloon in the wind. But he's assigned some grand significance to that event of a balloon doing 40 miles an hour. Great.
And I knew right then and there that was not ours. We don't have technology like that. I was read into a lot of SAPs, to the best of my knowledge, and we would never do that in a training range.
We don't have technology that can go 40 miles an hour. Again, he just said we don't have that kind of technology. The object in the Go Fast video was doing 40 miles per hour, which is consistent with a balloon in the wind.
Actually, aircraft carrier workups are so compressed. they have to do all these things. The pilot's got to get certified. They got to land so many times on the carrier. They got to do all these things and certify to go deploy. So throwing out advanced technology in a training range during a pre-deployment workup just doesn't happen. I mean, people will get fired. So, and of course, we have testing ranges to do that. That's of course. So I knew that was NARS. I also have been.
William Runner says they believe others, but don't take the time to do the research themselves. Yes, he's repeating Lou Elizondo false talking points and other people's false talking points that were based on a misinterpretation of how fast the object in that video was going. Remember? So William Runner, you're absolutely right. He's just repeating things that people told him. He didn't do any research himself. He's not even aware, I don't think, that it's been proven that the object in the Go Fast video was only doing 40 miles an hour. Not very fast, and certainly not proof of alien technology, but don't let that get in the way of a good bullshit story, right?
Been read in all the threat, our adversaries' capabilities. I knew nobody else had that. And so I knew right there that was something not ours, not human, off-world, whatever. It just wasn't ours. And my deputy and I were both open-minded. He was an SES, and I pulled him over, and we've talked about it for a while, and we're just pretty much amazed. But the next day, that email was wiped from my computer and my deputies and everybody else. So, okay, it's gone. Wow, yeah, I wanted to save that thing. It was interesting. And come to find out, I go to monthly meetings at my boss's headquarters in Norfolk. And we always talk about, staying up with the training cycle, and safety issues always came up.
I don't want this guy in charge of anything.
This was a big safety issue. The ops officer said so. And so, and my job as the chief meteorologist in the Navy, another one of my hats, was safety of flight. So we get into the next monthly meeting, and no one brings this stuff up. No one's talking about it, about a safety issue, almost canceling this major training event. And then you come to find out, one of the pilots flying during those missions, that video was from the USS Theodore Roosevelt's Air Wing. It was Ryan Graves. He's pretty well known now as somebody who's come out, and he's founded an organization I'm on the board of called the Americans for Safe Aerospace, and he's advocating for, with draft legislation out there, to instill reporting protocols for pilots in the FAA, commercial pilots and others by the FAA, because currently there and pretty much the Navy, if you come out and say, hey, I saw these things, it could be a career killer. Yeah. And I'll just, one more point about that. So I couldn't say anything at the time. And by the way, so it was wiped from my computer. I had been read into SAPs, and I knew, okay, this probably was connected to a SAP that the ops officer did not know. And the intelligence officer, one of the intelligence officers probably found that email and said, oh, shoot, and contacted whoever owned it, which was probably DIA. And they did their forensics and took everything off the system, whoever it was, I don't know. But I had been read into enough SAPs to know, that probably happened. And that's why I didn't have it. And that's why no one's talking about it. But it bothered me, Shawn, because, and now that I talk with Ryan, I realized, holy cow, lots of these things were in the airspace. They were interfering with operations, and they were a safety issue.
How many?
I don't know how many, but there were at one of the gimbal recording, it was another one from that period. And you can hear one of the pilots say, there's a whole fleet of them. So I don't know, but there were.
The audio from that video may have been altered. And so this is his evidence for non-human visitation on Earth. The 3 worthless videos that Elizondo borrowed out of the Pentagon and profited from for years and years and years. And those 3 videos never proved anything conclusive. And in fact, a lot of people, including me, believe that all 3 of those videos have been largely debunked as not what the people selling this narrative, this UFO threat narrative, pretended them to be. Gotta love it. Greg O'Brien is back with another $6.66. Again, you're going to get me in trouble, Greg O'Brien. Tic-tac equals tactic. It's a tactic to sell a false UFO threat narrative so that everybody can get funding and money just to, do something about the threat narrative. But thank you for your kindness, Greg O'Brien. I don't know about the rest of you, but I don't know how much more of this I could take.
For a lot.
I'm still waiting for the underwater alien base. All we're hearing about is tic tac and go fast and gimbal nonsense. That's largely, at least inconclusive, and certainly does not prove alien visitation on Earth one bit. Those videos have been debunked out the wazoo, but people still refer to them and use the original fake talking points like, this go fast. This thing was going so fast, it couldn't be human technology. Bullshit. Bullshit. It was doing 40 miles an hour.
And the pilots were seeing them all the time. And what gets me is that commanders like me, one-star admirals, who are in charge of the well-being, responsible for the well-being and safety of their people and their forces, they were basically forced to turn a blind eye because of some overclassification issue and make the pilots mitigate the safety threat on their own, which is feckless to me. We should be stepping up as flags, as leaders, and saying, all right, let's address this here. Let's talk about it at the 4-star meeting and make sure we don't have to cancel exercise or see pilots fall out of the sky because of interactions with these things or avoidance maneuvers that again. So there's
pretty interesting.
That's why I've come out and been an advocate for what Ryan's doing.
Nobody brought up that email.
No. Well, and that's the thing is
the US
that we all knew, okay, someone just touched a sap and they got rid of it and we can't talk about it. Think about that. So we could have planes falling out of the sky, but we're not going to talk about it because of this overclassification. That's what's, there's a lot of unethical aspects, I think, of this whole UAP system that exists right now in the government.
Man, that's terrifying.
Yeah.
That somebody, I mean, how high up does this go, do you think? These people pulling the strings saying, get rid of that, take that email out.
Well, I don't know.
Send out this disinformation.
Yeah. I don't know how high it is, but obviously AARO's last report, the All-Domain Anomaly Resolution Office in the Pentagon, was so deliberately false that obviously it's, and they had to approve it. So it's got to be pretty high at the SecDef. And I would say certainly the NSC level.
Notice he makes definitive statements. The AARO report was definitively false. What evidence does he have that the AARO report was definitively false? Apparently, he doesn't have evidence because, this is the land of make-believe and delusions. He's repeating the false talking points of Elizondo and Christopher Mellon, who he's buddies with. The fake Pentagon UFO program director, right? Great. JJ with kind and generous £5. We thank you for your kindness, generosity, and support. And thanks for being a member. 2 great ways to help us too.
Raise the cash.
Thank you, JJ, longtime show supporter. We appreciate you. Thanks for appreciating us.
Probably ODNI, Avril Haines, I'm sure, had some decision to say, nope, we're not going to talk about this. And same with Jake Sullivan, the NSC, I'm sure. Because there's so many people clamoring for it right now, and it's getting so much media visibility. So it had to be up at that level. I don't know about the president, but probably the NSC director.
No.
Man.
Hold on here.
So what is Ocean?
1 second here. I'll address this because I'm sure other people have wondered. I've always wondered, are those hand-rolled cigarettes tobacco or wacky tobacco? I miss those days where me and Ganj were friends. This is hand-rolled. These are hand-rolled. It's Bugler. It's tobacco, Billy Hicks. But I have in my pocket right now some vapes, and I have been trying. I'm about 30% vaping now. But one of the problems that I have with vaping is it really dries out your mouth and your throat. And I cough a lot more when I vape than when I smoke. So I'm hopeful that I'll be tobacco free in the next 30 days. I'm trying my best to just vape. I vaped for years. I quit smoking and I vaped for years. And then somebody gave me a can of this, and that was terrible. So for the last couple of years, I've been smoking. But I thank you for your kind and generous $5. We appreciate you. Thanks for appreciating us, Billy Hicks. I think doing the show would be a lot easier if I was just power smoking cannabis through this whole thing, right? But I generally never have on screen partaken. I do have a medical card, and all of that. Though I'm a big fan of cannabis, but I don't. I think I'm not sure, but I think if YouTube knows that you're smoking cannabis on screen, they demonetize your videos, or they just generally don't like it. It's not ad friendly to be doing that. But yeah, I appreciate it. Vape tastes better. Lucy Day says the gum worked for me when nothing else did to stop smoking. Does anybody do those Zyn things? I just got a chance. I was at a party and somebody gave me one. They were doing it, and I was curious. Does that? He said that he quit smoking with those Zyn things. They're like little pouches, and you put it on the side of your mouth, and it's I don't know. I haven't bought a pack yet. I'm thinking about trying that too, because sometimes I think that the nicotine that you get from the vapes is not enough. I still want a cigarette after I vape. I can vape for 20 minutes. I'll still want a cigarette.
Photographer and all the different things that you've done for the government, for the Navy, for the country. Why are you focusing on underwater stuff?
Yeah. Well, first off, we know we see them in the water too.
Interesting stuff.
The last example I saw was from the USS Omaha off Southern California, a well-known video that Jeremy Corbell, one of the UAP media types, has gotten out there. And and there's other examples too. Classified examples I can't talk about, but confirmation that we see these things underwater. And I can't.
It's classified, and I can't give you any evidence of it, but we see these things underwater. Jimmy Ichowski said something, and I think it's a sentiment shared by many of us here. He says, I'm at the stage now that we need actual evidence. For how many decades have we heard story after story and no evidence? Cal Poly says, Zyn looks gross. V says, Navy meteorologists are not who you go to for this information. Yeah, I agree 100%. William Runner says, did you guys see where that girl supposedly had a cannabis-induced psychotic episode and stabbed her boyfriend like 100 times, killing him? And she was stabbing herself and then literally, wow. I know, I haven't heard of that. Brad Burry says, vaped and pouched for a few years, but I'm much happier going 100% combustible. Yes. Is Cambion selling vapes? No, I'm just trying to switch to vapes because it's a much healthier option. When I used to vape instead of smoke, I used to jog and run, and I had the lung capacity to do it, but smoking, it's really bad. It's my worst smoking is my worst habit, V. And my wife would be much happier if I stopped smoking. Of course, as you know, V, being a woman, as soon as I stop smoking, she'll start harping on something else. You know what I realized about marriage, V? I've been with my wife for like 25 years. We were together for 13 years before we got married. But in any case, I've been with her for so long. And I suddenly realized recently, V, that this entire time we've been together, we've been working on me. She's apparently perfect. She doesn't need to change anything, but I need to change a lot of stuff to keep her happy. It is what it is. Happy
Tell
wife,
a story
happy
about
life.
a submarine officer who came out to me too. But so we know they're in the water. And
again,
that's my thing. I've done a whole career of ocean science, and I so it's what I know, and it's who my network is. So, and now I'm on 2 national bodies that advise on ocean research, and I'm trying to get UAP studies into their research priorities. One reports to the White House, and one's within the national academies. That's why. It's what I know, and I know they're in the water, and we're never going to have a full understanding of what the nature of UAP unless we look in the water too.
This is another, trust me, bro. Oh yeah, they're definitely in the water. I'm sure of it. Well, what's your evidence of that, Mr. Admiral? Oh, it's classified. I can't. He's using the classified excuse that they all use. Oh, I'm sure there's UFOs and UAPs in the water. I'm sure of it based on my experience. Great. What is the evidence? Do you have evidence to support your claim? Well, no, I can't give you any evidence, but trust me, bro. Another trust me, bro.
Too. So that's what I can bring to bear on this whole discussion.
How many encounters have we had of UAP, UFO activity in the water?
So I don't know. I mean, there's a couple books out on it, and most of
expert
all of them, I
on
think,
UFOs.
really lack data.
I don't
They're
know.
mostly anecdotal with interviews of
Anecdotes.
people.
Yes.
One of them is by a guy named Preston Dennett, and it's interesting because that he looks at the hotspot phenomena off
No, I
Southern
can't.
California.
The audio is fine.
And then there's
everybody else.
an older book by a guy named Carl Feint who something called, I think it was called
Thanks,
UFOs in the Water. And he also just compiled a wide range of cases, just interviewed people. And so there's a lot. There's several hundred in those. And then Richard Dolan, who's a pretty well-known UAP researcher, he is he's finishing up a book, and I've seen the draft, and he's got about 600 cases where he's looked at all the books and sources and that go back from the 1700s. So I think there was there's some interesting cases in that book.
So he's citing Richard Dolan for proof of underwater UFOs. But what he forgets to tell you is that Richard Dolan is right now selling people superpowers for $60. Him and his psychic Scientologist wife are selling people super courses in how you too can have superpowers for $60. Richard Dolan is as credible as a crackhead, and his wife is as credible as a crackhead, right? Oh, well, there's proof from Richard Dolan, who's selling people superpowers. You got to give people the whole story. Somebody that's selling people superpowers is not a credible source of information, Mr. Admiral.
But ultimately, it's a lot less than we've seen in the atmosphere because the ocean's not as transparent. But it's worth looking at again because there may be more going on than that amount we know to have existed.
Again, he's getting his information from other wackadoos.
Yeah, this is a good story. So as I've come out, if you will, or I've been speaking out, and I am what I am. I have the scientific background as an authority on these topics of ocean science and exploration. People have looked to me and said, I bet if I tell him, he seems like a straight shooter, a credible guy, I guess. And so some mariner came to me and virtually and he just said, hey, I was on a sub in the 80s. I'd like to talk to you about what I saw. Okay, yeah, let's have a call. I got on a call with him. He was a nuclear submarine officer. Now he's an engineer, and I think for an energy company. And this guy is like most nuclear submariners I know. He is just the facts. He is by the book, very much that way in his personality. And the story he shared with me was this. He's in the North Atlantic in the 80s. Cold War is hot. And their sub's operating, I wouldn't say super deep, but it was very high sea state because of a storm, 40-foot waves. So they were below that. But even there, they were kind of rocking. Subs can feel that wave action. And so because it was so rough, it creates a lot of ambient noise. And in those conditions, it is really hard to passively detect another submarine. So they felt pretty secure. They weren't going to be detected by a Russian sub. And they probably weren't going to hear one either. And so he's on the watch, and all of a sudden, they get a passive hit contact that's moving, off the starboard at some range. I don't know the range, but and then it paused and then started closing on them rapidly.
Yes,
and they call it constant bearing, decreasing range. And you don't want that when you're a ship driver or a sub driver.
No,
I drove ships, aircraft carriers. I was a deck watch officer.
That's
going to be a collision. And they had that was every feature that a Russian torpedo would have in terms of the constant bearing, decreasing range at a very rapid rate. And they were so convinced. He called the captain of the bridge. They set general quarters and they dived. And it kept on coming and it kept on coming. And they were hoping to get below some acoustic lens or whatever that wouldn't be able to find them and lose track. And it just kept coming. And so they went as deep as crush depth, just above it, Crush depth is that depth
I'm saying
of
it's
submarine
too
will
loud. I apologize if that's the case. So
implode.
turn it down a little
And,
bit. Let me know if
and that's a
better.
dangerous place to be on an older sub like this. But they were convinced this was a Russian sub coming at them. And then at some range close, I don't know what, it paused, and then slowly took station on their stern behind them and trailed them for a while. So they're getting this passive acoustic hit of something doing this. And then after minutes, maybe, it just rapidly departed the scene.
People, you're an expert.
And
that you're not.
And they couldn't. There's no explanation. The Russians didn't have technology like that. We didn't have technology like that. And again, to this day, he doesn't know. I want to get that data. The data is collected and archived at Johns Hopkins University, and I'm in the process of reinstating my clearance, and I want to look into that.
He's reinstating his clearance. So did he lose his clearance? I'm not aware of admirals just losing their clearance when they retire. Do they? Does anybody know? And so we have a story where a submarine encountered something they couldn't explain. So he jumped straight to aliens. This is the problem. Just because it's an unexplained event doesn't mean it's aliens. You need proof or evidence that it's aliens. Something unexplained could be anything.
What?
Could be undersea drone, could be new technology that the Russians were testing or the Chinese were testing or whatever. The jump straight to aliens annoys the hell out of me with these people. We don't have that kind of technology. Must be aliens.
Wow.
Yeah.
Are there a lot of examples like this?
So I don't know, but I have talked.
I don't know. I'm the authority on this underwater UFO. I don't know.
To one other submariner, nuclear submarine officer, who says that he's not seen that before, but when you go around the Navy and talk to other sonar techs, they say they do see these quite often.
Really?
Yeah, and this guy's very credible. He's actually...
Yeah, so somebody told me, so it must be true. I don't have evidence it's true, but somebody told me it's true, so it must be true. This is one big circle jerk of people jerking each other off talking about aliens.
Actually a reservist, and his day job is he works in the Pentagon.
All
as a civilian.
Attracted to nuclear subs?
I don't know.
All right, thanks, Billy.
But this is an interesting thing, and I wrote a paper about this called Beneath the Surface. We may learn more about UAP if we look in the ocean. It's on the Soul Foundation's website.
Okay,
and, I write about that because we know.
Okay, thanks, Mike Padilla.
And there's a book on this that
Admirals
UAP seem to be attracted or active around nuclear sites. Is it because that submarine had a nuclear reactor and had nuclear armed missiles? And what about the Nimitz and the Theodore Roosevelt aircraft carriers? Is because they're nuclear powered? Maybe is that attracting them? I don't know, but it's a very interesting correlation.
Oh, nuclear, that's what attracts the aliens.
What are some of the things that you're finding under the ocean, personally?
Well, so this is neat. The ocean's so interesting to me still. And so for example, when I was with the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, we pronounce it NOAA, that we had a program called the Ocean Exploration and Research Program with a dedicated ship, and it had a deep diving ROV, remotely operated vehicle, with high resolution cameras and other instruments. And we purposely go look for things. And every year we found new species, whether it be deep coral or new types of fish. And get this is how much we don't know about the ocean. In 2020, I think it was, we had a fisheries biologist go down to Antarctica and discover a new species of killer whale that had never been seen. So this isn't like just some.
Well, that's pretty interesting. But you know what's funny is this. It's pretty funny that this video is titled Underwater Alien Base. And so far we're 47 minutes in. No even talk of an underwater alien base. Do I got to watch another hour and a half of this to figure out that this is clickbait, sensationalized garbage, and this admiral is not going to show us evidence or proof of an underwater alien base? But hey, that apparently didn't stop Shawn Ryan from titling the video Admiral Tim Gallaudet Underwater Alien Base.
Some small weird microbe. There's all sorts of things we've never seen before.
A new species of killer whales.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah. Have you been to Antarctica?
I've not. I've been in the Arctic. I've been in the Arctic on a sub. So I've surfaced. I've been up there on the ice camp that they have up there.
What's up there?
The Arctic?
Yeah.
Well, okay. I was there because the U.S. Navy every 2 years hosts.
Oh, here we go. We're going to get into Antarctic
called
conspiracies and stories.
And basically study some of the dynamics of ice, and
Does
as well
anybody
as
have a
the
timestamp on the
tactics of
underwater
operating
alien
under
base?
the ice, which we need to refine when you look at what Russia's doing. And so, but there's a lot of things to discover too. Again, on the seabed, new geologic features. There are again all sorts of sea life under the ice too.
Background checks the event, circumstances in your personal
yeah, I mean, we could talk about
sense.
a million things about what's in the ocean.
Let's go.
Well, shoot.
So
Here's something I was pretty proud of. So because we don't know so much about the ocean, and here I was in the Trump administration, and I'm with an environmental science agency. So it was kind of a tricky place to be.
Yeah, baptism with your UAP
not
degree.
keen on major funding to science agencies.
Welcome to the cult.
The White House proposed a lot of cuts to our budget. Congress always put the money back in. But we were looking for good ways to show leadership and advance the ocean that would appeal to his administration. And so one of the things I led was a national strategy to map and explore the ocean, or the U.S. ocean, which is our exclusive economic zone. And the White House approved it, and we put together a plan, a team, and it's still being executed. And so we didn't even know. Only about 40% of the seafloor in the U.S. had been mapped, and now we're getting near 50. And why that matters is, first of all, submarine navigation, or navigation, period, ships. Submarines, too. We had 2 submarines. One was the USS San Francisco in the early 2000s, and then later the USS Connecticut in the early 2020s. Both collide with undersea mountains, seamounts, sustained major damage, hundreds of millions of dollars. In the San Francisco's case, one sailor was killed because it just 35 knots, boom, he sustained a head injury. And that's how much we don't know about the ocean and why we need to do it. And I even wrote an article about the fact that China is mapping and exploring the ocean heavily in the Western Pacific. And if they know the ocean better than us, we're going to have a hard time with them. You know, think about this. High ground in ground warfare provides tactical advantage, right? And the ocean has a high ground too. If you know the acoustic properties and the seabed well, then you can use that to your advantage in not predicting the acoustic and optical paths of sensors and avoid counter detection and maximize your ability to detect the adversary. So you need to know the ocean just like you need to know terrain. In your old line of work. Mm-hmm. And so, and that's it. So getting a better feel for what we know, it matters for national security, and it matters for a lot of cool science. We have some of the best managed fisheries in the world in the U.S., especially in Alaska. And we need to understand.
I don't know that that's true. We have some of the best managed fisheries.
Understand the nature of the fish, where they're moving into certain places. We need to understand what their habitat
let's
is
talk
like,
about
so we know
fish
where they'll
instead
be.
of the alien bases that was promised.
There's all sorts of reasons to
underwater alien bases that were promised in the title of this clickbait garbage video from Shawn Ryan.
What are some of the things you've encountered?
So there's some other interesting ocean things I've seen and done, and a lot of this is credit. I give credit to my wife Karen, who was a Navy diver. Doing salvage. She was diving officer.
You're not going to believe it.
Aircraft
we picked up Bigfoot walking into the hollow earth on sonar.
And done some hard stuff. She's my inspiration. And she's the reason, actually, I even speak up about UAP. I had no idea. I had no intention of doing it. And she just said, Tim, you know, you've done some things. You have a voice. Why don't you do it? Why don't you go contact Avi? And so I give her that credit. But also because she was a former Navy diver, and we met getting our graduate degrees in oceanography at Scripps. That's just what we do now as a family. We do ocean stuff. And so I joined her. We did
apparently they do ghost TV shows
cage
too.
Diving expedition off Guadalupe Island with great white sharks.
Oh man.
Oh,
How was that?
It was amazing. And so this is
amazing.
Yeah. Well, no,
He was an
there's
admiral in
so much
Long
to say
John
about
Silver's
it. But
Navy.
the neat thing that
Yeah,
I was
him and
proud of is it
Popeye.
wasn't just some adventure tourism deal.
Foxy's
I
friends.
actually found the people who do it
Too many
through my old
specialties
agency,
outside of
NOAA.
his field are lame
One
to
of
be
the women
legit.
who worked at our Fisheries Science Center
Ryan
in San
show is
Diego, she
counterintelligence.
had
Could
a
be.
nonprofit job doing marine scientific research,
I saw
investigating
that. Thank
specifically
you,
great
Jim.
white sharks.
I don't
And this
think
was
I've
part
heard
of
of
a
him
20-year
before.
time series
But maybe I
where
did. It
the
rings a
scientists
bell.
had been
I'll look into it. Thank you.
photo-identifying individuals in the population by the markings
Have you ever had to
on their,
torpedo
from the
a
side
shark
of their
like
body,
Jaws?
where because they're kind of dark on the top, blue, and then they're
We're going to need a
light
bigger
white
boat,
on the
self-licking
bottom.
ice cream
And it's like a
cone.
zebra. They have it's unique to each individual. The
So
pattern.
now he's
And
talking about sharks. Where is the information on the underwater alien base that we were promised in the title of this garbage video, Shawn Ryan?
so they had been photo IDing all the individuals, and it's a really important scientific endeavor because the apex predators in a population, if you can understand their health sort of at an individual level, you'll have a very good indicator of what the entire ecosystem's doing. And so we went down there, we took our GoPro data, they downloaded it and used our data, but it was also just extraordinary. These animals are as big as buses.
Biologics.
Of course, they're like weapons with their teeth, and they're interesting. I remember we had a day travel from Ensenada, and we had 3 days of diving, and a day travel back. And I remember thinking on the way out, we're gonna have 3 days in the water. I'm probably gonna get bored after the first day. I'm gonna see the same stuff all the time. No way. Now I know, because these animals are coming right up to you, and they're just doing what they do in the wild, and they're majestic and beautiful. But
this is all well
now
and good.
I know why bungee jumpers
once.
do what they do, because I just wanted to get in the water like constantly and see those things.
I didn't even have a cage.
Never disappointing.
Man.
Yeah, that was a good show.
Was that pure pleasure, or were you down there to study?
I was there again for that nonprofit to help with their scientific study of the animals.
Yeah.
So that was, I had to pay.
Boy, does anybody else feel let down? We were promised an underwater alien base, and all we're hearing about is him swimming with sharks, which, by the way, is an amazing experience. I did it once with my wife. Secretly thinks she was trying to kill me, but and we did it with sharks, and there was no cage. We're just out in the water with them. I was terrified, to be very honest with you, because the sharks were bigger than me. And I'm a pretty big guy. I'm 6'2", 6'3". The sharks were much, much bigger than me. And the way that they do it, at least where we were in the Bahamas, they just drop this cage with meat in it right underneath you. And then they throw you in the water on a rope. And all these people are holding the rope, and you've got your goggles on, and you're looking at the sharks. But then a shark came right up and smacked into my shoulder, swimming by me. I almost shit my pants. Quite honestly, I almost shit my swimming trunks. We had a great time. But I feel let down because I was promised in this video title, Underwater Alien Bases, and I'm hearing about this guy swimming in sharks, which is normal earthly activity. Talk about overpromise and underdeliver. We've talked about this so many times. I say it till I'm blue in the face. All these people overpromise, and then they underdeliver, and it inevitably leads to the big letdown. I was promised alien bases. I'm just hearing about him going scuba diving in a cage with sharks, which I guess is cool, but it's not as cool as underwater alien bases, right?
Pay for it, but it was a contribution to that science institute.
Cool.
Marine Conservation Science International is what they're called, MCSI. Interestingly, and I didn't know this back then, I wish I did, but that's the Guadalupe Island off Baja California is a hotspot for UAP.
Is it really?
All the fishermen around there, they see them all the time. Yeah, you Google that and you get tons of hits.
Where's the evidence? Where's the evidence? There is none.
When I first started this whole podcasting thing, an online store was about as far from my mind as
He's got to hawk his shit. Let's continue. We'll see where we at. We're almost at an hour. We're up to an hour. We still haven't heard about the alien underwater base yet.
Cool. Yeah. So this is and our next trip is to Fiji and the Republic of Palau to do some diving. And we were in Palau last and saw some really magnificent black tip reef sharks up close and personal. So that's That's what we do for fun.
What are some of the things you've encountered as an oceanographer that you know?
So here you go. When I was
keep you up at night.
Oh, keep me up at night. The nature of the ocean doesn't keep me up at night. It's our adversaries who want to exploit the ocean to harm us or our allies. For example, Chinese illegal fishing is destroying economies all around the world, especially in Pacific Island countries. I wouldn't say it keeps me up at night, but it is a big issue that even our DoD, the Navy, is working to combat with the Coast Guard. There's a funny thing about that question, Shawn. So I served in the same administration as Secretary Mattis when he was the Secretary of Defense.
Building up to it,
Great
maybe.
guy. That was one of the questions he answered early on as his
Are we sure this guy
tenure as SecDef. Someone said, "What keeps you up at night?" And he said,
"They shut down a local beach again.
Nothing keeps me up at night. I keep other people up
That's
at
scary.
night." He's great. He's the best. Yeah. I
Shitting in your
I
pants.
got to serve with some fine
so they
people
spit you out.
in the Trump administration. Secretary Mattis was one. General John Kelly, the first chief of staff, or no, he was Homeland Security chief initially.
Yes, the Sharks and
Great
Dolphins
person
can
there.
tell us more about the alien
He
underground
was a
bases than
mentor
this guy.
for a month-long course I took at the National Defense University. Great person, and there are others too.
Well, what are you finding?
I missed
what are you
the
finding under
underground
there,
alien
UAP
bases
wise?
when I went swimming with the shark.
UAP wise,
Yeah.
in
Yeah,
the
I
ocean.
missed that.
So again, I only know of the examples I've just shared.
Yeah, I don't like sharks or
and then there's some
alligators or
classified
bears or
examples
anything.
I can't talk
Kill me.
about that I know of. And basically, like you see in the atmosphere, you see large craft, different shapes. I mean, the reports have been different lighting configurations sometimes, and so yes, it seems
So
to
far,
be to in the
all I've gotten from
variety
this guy
of
is
the
repeated
nature. It
stories
seems
from
to be
other
as
people
diverse
with
as
no
it is up in
evidence.
the atmosphere. Yeah, I mean that's what seems to come through. And again, if we've seen so much through the published literature and then the documented accounts recently, then there may be not just maybe the tip of the iceberg.
What do you think these are?
Yeah, right.
Are they man-made?
I don't know. No. Well, first off, no.
I don't know
I
what
don't
they are.
think.
I'm
I
not
don't
saying
know.
it's aliens.
That's
but
why
it's
we need to
aliens.
study it. And these organizations I'm with, supporting their research. But as
Jesus
this topic
Christ,
gets explored more and more, and I
Too much
engage
information.
with
Too much
people
information.
that are
Dirk. But
that
that
have been
explains
read
a lot
in
about
or
you.
have somehow touched the programs. We have a very active discussion going on daily about
Wilcox
this
is
very
definitely
question. What
bringing
are
his
they?
guitar.
And I mean, there's some possibilities. They could be from an extraterrestrial source.
Time
Again,
travelers,
we don't know the physics on how that could be.
Earth people,
Some people have
Atlanteans,
speculated an interdimensional
interdimensionals.
origin, which I don't understand
all
either.
the
But
same- this
again,
is
since we
Rush
really don't
talking
know all
points,
there is
right?
about physics, possibly
Stiff
there's
Richards
something
thinks this
there.
guy is a chronic
And then
masturbator.
there's a really interesting theory and I'll encourage your listeners to check it out. There's an article in
These
the
two
Debrief
guys need one
from early
fast
this
pipe to
year,
share on their
2024,
fine
by
leather
a guy
chair.
named Bernardo Kastrup, and it's
This is the second time he's mentioned the debrief, so we know where he's getting his information from.
a really well written essay where he speculates that, well, all right,
Another
what's the most likely
disinformation
source? Well,
asset.
if
Yeah.
intergalactic travel is not possible, then it
David
could
Wilcock
be
can hold your hair when you
that
bark.
these things originated before we evolved, before life as we know it evolved. So they think there's a period around 750 million years ago where, due to the recycling of the continents, if you will, that there's no fossil evidence for. And so there's a period a billion years ago or more that we just don't have any fossil evidence of. And he conjectures that possibly an advanced technology civilization evolved. And that's not a stretch when you think we're an advanced technology civilization, I think, kind of, and we've evolved. We're here now. So if you know we can
More
do that,
speculation.
then
All
go
speculation.
back even 1 billion years, and perhaps
All speculation.
that could have happened. And when they saw things
They
getting
were
dicey because
speculate.
there's
Yes.
so many cataclysms that have happened. You look at the dinosaurs and the
You have to
asteroid
check
that wiped off a large
interdimensionals
portion of the
off my
Earth.
bingo
There have been
card,
other
too.
extinction events, and then less cataclysmic, but even severe, like about 12,000 years ago, this climatic period called the Younger Dryas, where the Earth's temperature dropped a lot, and you can see evidence of that in geology and the
over and over and over
so
again.
that was
This
an
guy's
event
excellent
where
at repeating
a large
UFO
part of
grifter
the
talking
Earth's
points.
life was exterminated.
Evidence-free stories
So
of
what's happened?
nonsense.
The Earth's pretty hostile. You look at the volcanoes in Iceland. You look at asteroid impacts of the past. And maybe this advanced technology civilization said, we're out of here. We're going to go create a habitat down deep, or maybe on Mars or in the moon,
inner Earth
and
people.
just
Take that
get
off
somewhere
your
more
bingo
stable.
card.
And maybe
Inner
they've just
Earth people.
been able to
The
live, and we've
honeycomb
not
Earth
found
people.
evidence
This
of it yet.
Wackadoo's talking about
Or
the
that these
honeycomb
things
Earth
are
people.
evidence of that.
So there's it sounds like there's 3 discussions going on within the professionals, we'll call them.
Yes, all evidence of the
so one of them
older
is
smart apes
ancient
got
technology /
abducted into Middle Earth.
civilization, next interdimensional, and the next extraterrestrial.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's how I see it. The possibilities. Maybe there are
theory
more. I
is known
haven't thought
in
of them.
philosophy.
So I'd like to dissect kind of each one of those, with the ancient civilization stuff. I mean, what does that, at the end of this, I want to ask where you're leaning towards, but I mean, what is that if there's a civilization in the earth, in the ocean?
They're talking about the honeycomb
towards
Earth
the Earth's,
people.
The center. I mean, what does that even look like?
Well,
what do you
right.
think?
No, we mapped the surface of the seabed, again, not very incompletely. So we don't even know. There are parts of is there underwater structures? We don't really know. Or are they deep below the geology as we know it? Again, we don't know. So but it's not a stretch to think it's possible based on the length this planet's been in existence.
Not a stretch to think that they're inner Earth honeycomb people flying spaceships around our atmosphere. It's not a stretch. It's not a stretch to think there's honeycomb inner Earth people from an ancient civilization that are flying these UFOs. It's not a stretch. Not at all.
And what's unfortunate about this whole discussion we talked about a little earlier is it's so stigmatized that few people want to be open-minded and talk like we are right now of entertaining the possibility of an advanced technology civilization from either of those 3 origins. It's just not taken seriously. And I think, and thank you for having me on, because it is about time we do it, because we do see evidence of them.
Yes, it's about time we talk about the honeycomb hideout people flying the spaceships around our atmosphere
all the time.
What
in the ocean and, of course, in the atmosphere.
And you know of a Canadian USO encounter?
Well, yeah, this is one of the earlier ones. It's in the 60s, I think early 60s, and there's a great book about it called Sweet Clear 5. And it refers to the name of this mine warfare exercise. The subtitle is NATO's Underwater UFO Encounter.
Nonsense, yeah.
And it's a very interesting book because it's written by a researcher who interviewed these Canadian divers. Now, what happened is, first off, there was a major UFO event in Canada, a place called Shag Harbor, Nova Scotia, in either late 60s, I think the late 60s. I don't remember the date. And that's all over the web. But before that, there was another encounter where UFOs were seen to go into the water, and it happened I think it coincided with a NATO exercise, and the ships all got vectored to go look for these things. And Canadian divers were interviewed and claimed to have seen these 2 underwater discs and actual occupants outside the craft trying to repair it. So aliens. And they even said they captured video, but they don't know where the tapes are.
We could have had
this book, Sweet Clear 5, is all about it. And it's about the investigation into that. And that's the first well documented USO case that I know about.
Wow. Was there any description on what the beings?
There was, and I think they were humanoid. I don't remember the details. They weren't human for sure, but they were human-like.
Did they have equipment on?
I don't know. It didn't seem like they did, but maybe it was so technical that it didn't appear to be like equipment. I don't know.
Man, so I mean,
the dolphin Illuminati.
If we're on this, we're going through 3 discussions, and if it was an advanced civilization that's living under the surface of the earth, whether it's in the ocean or somewhere else, I mean, how long? I mean,
well, here I just think
questions.
I know. I don't know, but I do know this, and this is why I like the Galileo project, because Avi Loeb articulates this so well.
We could have had UFOs on tape, but their grandma
modern
taped
society doesn't appreciate how
we
new to
almost
the
had the
scene we
proof
are
of aliens,
in terms of
but somebody lost the tape.
everything.
How convenient!
Our behavior,
Right? How convenient!
how we treat each other, and technology.
There's always some excuse,
and
right?
so
Oh,
you have to think it's just so possible
that
that either in this large universe or in a part of the universe we don't even know about, like I said, another dimension, that some advance or several. And actually that's the thing, Shawn, is that from what I gather of all these eyewitness accounts that are out there, and knowledge from credible sources that were that know people in these programs, the UAP programs, crash retrieval programs, that there are different types. And I mean, in fact, what's very interesting too, just today, again, I mentioned Chris Mellon. He was a former assistant, DASD, Deputy Assistant Secretary of Defense for Intelligence.
They're delusions.
He was up there, and he knows what he's talking about, and he's been in this field for some time. He
says Christopher Mellon knows what he's talking about. Then why did he stand next to a goddamn party balloon, you asshole, and claim it was an alien spaceship? He knows what he's talking about. He stood next to a party balloon and claimed it was an alien spaceship, you dumbass. That's who you're getting your information from? Other wackadoos.
He, on his Substack page, account, whatever you call it, today, April 23rd, he published an article, and he had a screenshot of a signal discussion with someone who had known people in that crash retrieval program. And he said that he was very credible, didn't want to let his name out, but the person acknowledged that there was an active crash retrieval program and that there was an Air Force.
Okay, so an anonymous source told Avi Loeb this stuff. Let's back it up just a minute here. So, there's definitely crash retrieval programs because somebody anonymously told Avi Loeb that. Great. Can we get his name? Well, no, we can't tell you his identity, but he said that the alien crash retrieval programs are real. Okay. Can we interview him? Well, no. You know, this anonymous source bluff maneuver.
Didn't want to let his name out.
He can't let his name out, but he's got the truth.
That there was an active crash retrieval program.
Subterfuge and misdirection.
There was an Air Force gatekeeper at the SES level for it. And so there was this discussion that he published today. And he wrote a nice article about it. Basically, what's so good about Chris, he doesn't say what he doesn't know. He says what he knows. He doesn't speculate. And he doesn't reveal sources that don't want to be revealed. And so he said, here's the discussion we had. This person was senior in the government, and I'm not going to reveal his name, but he said he was aware of these programs. Wasn't read into them, but was aware.
It's all top secret, but I can tell you about it.
So he's just putting that out there. Again, doing it because there's such an active disinformation campaign that that office, Arrow, is a part of to discredit anybody who brings forth this information.
It's a disinformation campaign. No. Arrow was willing to look at everybody's evidence. You know what the problem was? Admiral Dumbass. That's my name. He's Admiral Dumbass from now on. Listen, Admiral Dumbass. All you clowns could have went to Arrow with real and verifiable evidence, but you didn't. You went to them with stories and nonsense and hoax cases and fake UFO sightings and fake bullshit. So yes, they discredited you. And I don't even think that they discredited people. They simply said that the people telling all these stories were the same group of people that he, Admiral Dumbass, is buddies with. Same group over and over again. The Skinwalker scam crew, Elizondo, Christopher Mellon, Grush, Jeremy Corbell, George Knapp. It's all the same group of assholes perpetrating these myths, repeating story after story after story. But as we see, oh, well, no, that somebody told Avi Loeb that those crash retrieval programs, they're aware of them. Great. Can we get their name? No. Anonymous source, right? You deserve to be discredited. You all do. Either come with evidence or shut the fuck up, all of you clowns.
And again, the highest level, the NSC, obviously, the ODNI, they don't want this information out. Now, it's worth talking about that for a little bit. Why am I coming out now if the government is doing the best thing and doesn't want the information out? Now,
yes.
So I think they're wrong on this case. And so do my colleagues like Chris and Lou Elizondo.
See, those are his colleagues.
At some level, we should, not let
the same people who lied to us about TTSA, who lied to us about a sensitive government UFO program that didn't exist. Proven lying scumbags. Those are his colleagues. This is who this man chose to align himself with. Proven lying scumbags who allegedly defrauded the public out of millions of dollars based on lies, right? Those are his colleagues, proven liars. The same people who've been lying to us for 6 or 7 years. Those are his colleagues, and that's who he's getting his information from. I think we've pretty much confirmed that this guy's a wackadoo with no evidence of anything.
Advanced technology come out to the public, because we don't want our adversaries getting the upper hand. Of course
not.
Yeah,
and the books they read. You're right.
But the knowledge that we're being visited and can't secure our own water space and airspace, and that this could be something more of a global security nature, and it demands thoughtful public policy. And the public should have a part of that.
Yes, let's waste more government money.
And it's something that every nation is dealing with.
Enough taxpayer money. You Skinwalker scam clowns wasted $22 million of taxpayer-funded money. And you clowns want to waste more money to confirm your evidence-free delusions. Great. I, for one, as a taxpayer, don't want another penny spent on this bullshit until there's some evidence. If you come with evidence, I'm fine with the government spending money on investigating. How much did it cost Arrow to investigate all these wackadoos claims from the same old group of people? The people that Green Street calls the spooky hustlers, the people I call the UFO circle jerk crew, because all they do is jerk each other off and repeat each other's evidence-free stories over and over again, rinse and repeat. It's always the same group of people. It's ridiculous.
That's something I think just does not benefit us by trying to cover up. And in my personal opinion, the Arrow report was so inartful and flawed and full of errors that it makes me wonder: are we that clumsy?
There was a couple of typos. Is that what he's talking about? What did they get factually wrong? Prove it. Prove it, you clown. Prove it, Admiral Dumbass. You won't. All these people, it's research by proclamation. Oh, there was inaccuracies. Oh, they were totally wrong in that report. Prove it. Prove it. Show your evidence and proof that that report was wrong, you dumbass. Admiral Dumbass here, looking for a UFO payday, hanging out with all the same group of scammers that have been lying to us for how long now? Getting this information from the same group of UFO profiteering whore scumbags. Repeating stories from the same UFO profiteering scumbags that have been lying to the public and collecting every UFO dollar they can for years and years and years now. Who has he mentioned in this? Avi Loeb, who lied in a book. He was completely wrong on Oumuamua. The book's still on Amazon. He's still selling the book, claiming that was an interstellar spaceship, right? Lou Elizondo, the fake Pentagon UFO program director, and Christopher Mellon, those are his colleagues, the people who lied to us over and over and over again. How many times now? I don't know how we can make it any more clear that this guy is just another useful idiot. Let's find a guy with great credentials and send him out to the podcast circuit to repeat our evidence-free, faith-based talking points. And because he's got great credentials, people will believe him. That's how this scam works. Same group of dumbass assholes repeating the same lies over and over again. And I don't care how many times you repeat an evidence-free story. You can repeat it a billion times. Repeating it a billion times doesn't make an evidence-free story real. You know what does? Evidence. And this clown has made an awful lot of allegations and accusations against the people at Arrow. Why don't you prove your accusations and allegations, Admiral Dumbass? And why don't you educate yourself on actual history of the scammers, grifters, hoaxers, and UFO profiteering whores you have chosen to align yourself with before going out and making an ass out of yourself? You look like an idiot. Tell a lie enough and the people will believe it. Yes, Crypto Alchemist. Why has this oceanographer that is claiming inner Earth aliens refuses to acknowledge the crab people? Clearly, he is an agent of the crab people. Yes, Dr. Kirkpatrick was right, says Patty, and this guy is the proof. Yeah, the self-licking ice cream cone. It's the same group of people that tell each other stories, and they're all evidence-free stories, and they all believe each other, right? It's ridiculous. Pete Berry says, rinse, repeat. Add smoking dogs, rinse, repeat. Yes. I'm glad all these grifters are out of the government, says Foxy Friends. Yeah, I agree with you.
And inefficient and ineffective in other counterintelligence endeavors. I sure hope not. I hope we're not failing that badly.
Yeah, we are, because some of you UFO wackadoos like Jay Stratton, who's one of this guy's best friends, and Travis Taylor missed Chinese spy balloons because they were too busy looking for aliens. So you people are a national security threat, not the UFOs.
We're trying to perform the same kind of activity regarding Chinese
too busy looking
and
for
Russian
aliens to do your job and worry about adversarial technology.
Are there a lot of countries that are digging into this? Or are we?
There are. And now, I don't know of all of them, but I've had, for example, I was just contacted by an Italian researcher who has, like me, decided to focus on the underwater UAP, and he's been doing it for 20 years, perhaps, and was a colleague of this guy, Carl Feint, who wrote that original book, UFOs in the Water. And so there's that. This Soul Foundation group has just brought on a European on their board. His name is Jonathan Berta, and he's neat because
he's in with the Soul
technology
Foundation.
guy.
Gary Nolan's
He's got his own company.
This guy's a wackadoo connoisseur. All his friends are wackadoos.
I think they do aerial drones. And
his wife were wackadoos. And I
think it was in France
children
that they were seeing all these UAPs around their nuclear sites.
Convention.
And they contracted his company to fly drones to observe them.
The before the truth
that's how he kind of launched his company, and he's doing quite well. But he's one of these open-minded people, and so he brings in an international perspective to the Soul Foundation. In addition to Peter Skafish, who's the other lead, and he's got a humanities background. I think it's a socio-cultural anthropology. And you have Gary Nolan, who's got a material science and biomedical expertise, and he brings that hard science to the Soul Foundation.
What hard science? Where's the data? What hard science? There's no hard science. There's stories from wackadoos. That's what we get. There is no hard science. There is no data. This guy mentioned all this data at the beginning of this interview. Where's the data?
Let's get back to the underwater stuff. I want to know what else are you seeing? I mean, with your current research, what are you currently working on under there?
Well, I'm not an active investigator. I don't have a ship. I don't have the money to fund an expedition. There's a couple things that I have been involved in. For example, the Gallaudet project. And this isn't too out there, but it's part of the whole phenomena, if you will, and field that is worth pursuing. So Galileo is looking to discover remnants of ancient civilizations, extraterrestrial
There you
technology
go.
civilizations,
They're looking for an alien
or
base.
active ones that
There
are
we go.
in our world
Data
observing
is on
us.
Deep Space
So
Nine.
he's setting up this
Strictly outside of Earth.
Well, kind of. And so he's got telescopes that are looking at the near Earth atmosphere.
Okay.
And so wherever they come from. So
Okay.
it doesn't matter where their origin. He just wants to get scientifically study them better.
Well,
but
no,
here's something cool. So
let me tell you some
he
stories.
studied.
Anyway. I don't have any evidence.
The
Let me tell you
very
some
first
stories. That's what I'm here to do.
known
Tell wackadoo
interstellar
stories.
object to impact the planet. So it was in a catalog of, I think, asteroids or objects like that, that I forgot who maintained it. But basically, he got some data, looked at it. It had been gathered. I think it was collected on what appeared to be a meteorite, impact the Earth over the ocean off Papua New Guinea, the Bismarck Sea. And so he had data on this. And when he looked hard at the data, he realized that this thing its impact was not like others. We know from Space Force data.
There's this mystery. Let's make some mysteries. Listen, we made it more than halfway through this, and there's still no proof of underwater alien bases from this admiral. So I'm checking out. I've had enough of this wackadoo repeating the wackadoo evidence-free claims of other wackadoos that he calls his colleagues. It's a wackadoo UFO circle jerk. And this guy's just another extension of the circle jerk, right? Give everybody a reach around, get those disclosure boners ready. We'll just tell each other stories, evidence-free stories over and over and over again, rinse and repeat. I think we've done our due diligence here. This guy's just another wackadoo repeating false claims of other wackadoos. He has apparently no evidence of anything. He saw nothing while he was an admiral that would amount to proof. He heard people tell him stories of things. Oh, but they lost the tape, right? It's so stupid. The longer I'm here, the stupider this gets. So another whistleblower with zero evidence, zero experience of his own, but tons of evidence based solely off of trust me, bro stories. That's a great way to wrap it up, Crypto Alchemist. And I was thinking the same thing. I almost verbalized. It's almost exactly what you just wrote. That's a weird synchronicity, right? Yes, Roman X says, why don't these hosts ever push back on the BS these guests spout? Because if you are going to ask these people hard questions, they won't come on your show. There's a reason these people won't come on my show, Roman X, and it's not because people always make excuses like, oh, you're going to yell and scream at them. We've had some wackadoo weird guests here. I was always very, very respectful, with one possible exception. I raised my voice to a guest once who had been manipulating me for months. But otherwise, if people come here, I will be respectful and we'll have a debate about the evidence and the issues, but they won't come here because they're intellectual weaklings and cowards whose evidence-free, faith-based belief system cannot withstand debate or hard questions. And there's a reason that they only go on these friendly shows. And, there's this phenomenon, the UFO circle jerk circuit. That's what I call it. These people, they'll go only on certain shows that they know will not press them, will not demand evidence, will not correct them when they say completely and totally factually inaccurate things like this Admiral Dumbass just went through, right? I'm going to have to make some graphics of this guy as Popeye or something. This is just another wackadoo in a long line of wackadoos. And remember, we have detailed here that Lou Elizondo actively tried to recruit people with military credentials to work with and for him to push this false narrative. We've seen several examples of that here. Jeremy McGowan and this Rocky Swanson. So for all we know, this is another one of the people that Christopher Mellon and Lou Elizondo recruited to push this false narrative, because everybody knows, hey, if somebody's got great military credentials and they repeat our evidence-free stories, it's better than somebody else that doesn't have those military credentials and background repeating our evidence-free fake stories. Just amazing. Like I said, the longer I'm here, the more the stupider it gets. Billy Hicks. The dolphin Illuminati was real. Check out Russia's combat dolphin program. They were trying to turn dolphins into electrode mind control killers. I did see something about that one time. And I know that the United States Navy, they were going to strap bombs onto dolphins and train them to go right up to the side of a ship and then detonate the bomb. Poor dolphin, though, right? This is another one of the new Dave Grushes. Yes. And yes, Greer did the same thing and had no pushback. And by the way, we proved over and over and over again. We did that whole stream of Stephen Greer on Shawn Ryan. And Greer just lies through his teeth through the entire interview. And Shawn Ryan never stops him, just lets him lie for 2 or 3 hours straight. That's the game. Yes, mind detecting dolphins was another thing. Yes, absolutely. And Above the Cloud says dolphins might be smarter than us for sure. Could be. Yeah. So listen, we've done our due diligence. I will be back tomorrow night, 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And I hope that all of you and more will be here with us. I think that this is another one of these guys that has sadly fallen under the influence of this same old UFO con squad, UFO circle jerk crew that just keep repeating these stories. And did you notice how they all use each other for sources, right? What's your proof? Well, Avi Loeb said, well, Diana Pasulka said, like, come on. You don't have anything other than stories that the other wackadoos told you? When you're asked for evidence, you show some evidence. You don't just say, well, these other wackadoos said it's true, so it must be true. I am getting so tired of this whole circle jerk. I'm telling you, we're going to have to do some true crime shows or something just so we can get away from this insanity of this UFO circus. It never ends. It never changes. It's like the same stories with different front men repeating the same bullshit from the same group of a bunch of wackadoos. So Admiral Wackadoo Dumbass, that's what I'm calling this guy from. I'm never going to say his real name again. This guy, to me, will forever be known as Admiral Wackadoo Dumbass because all he does is repeat stories from the other group of wackadoos that he hangs out with. It's pretty clear he has no evidence, no firsthand knowledge of anything, no real evidence. Just trust me, bro. Another trust me, bro guy. But he has great military credentials, so he must be telling the truth, Stephen. Bullshit. Bullshit. People with high-ranking military credentials we've just displayed tonight can for sure be wackadoos. This guy's just another wackadoo in a long line of wackadoos making these evidence-free claims. But we're supposed to trust him because he was once an admiral in the Navy. And by the way, thank God he's out of the Navy. I don't want a wackadoo like that in charge of anything in the United States military because he's a wackadoo who believes wackadoo, everything wackadoo. It turns out his wife's a wackadoo. It's awesome. All right, so we've done our due diligence. I want to thank each and every one of you for joining us. We want to thank all of you kind and generous benefactors, you Patreon supporters, you YouTube channel members, all of you people gifting those YouTube channel, YouTube memberships. We want to thank you super chatters, super thanks, super sticker people, you PayPal pledgers as well. We appreciate each and every one of you. Bunker Buster. We want to thank Bunker Buster for a kind and generous $5 PayPal pledge. We thank you for your kindness, generosity, and support. Appreciate it very much. Thank you, Bunker Buster, for your kindness and for helping us too.
Raise the cash, raise the cash, raise the cash.
Yes, we've had a good night of praising the cash. We've exposed another wackadoo in the UFO circle jerk movement. And we'll be back tomorrow night to do some more of this. And I hope you will be here with me. I don't even know what else to say. This has been, like I said, the longer I'm here, I keep saying to myself, they can't keep doing this. They've got to have somebody with evidence. They can't just keep using each other to back up each other's evidence-free claims. But that's not what we get. And this is where we're at, and this is where we find ourselves. Welcome to the UFO Wackadoo Circus, where if you have impressive military credentials, you can make a career out of repeating stories from other wackadoos. It's kind of sad, but I've come to expect this from the UFO circus. So what can I say, friends? I will definitely be back tomorrow night, 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. I hope you will be here with us. And we're going to start posting tomorrow. I'm going to post the first of our new Truth Seekers Quick Dive series, which are short versions of what we do here. People have been asking me for years, can't you do short videos? And it's taken me forever. Somebody commented on the irony of it taking so long to figure out how to make so short videos, but it has. Really excited about the new series. We're going to be adding a section to our main YouTube channel with just those short 5 or 10 minute format videos. Let me know what you think of them. If you're a member or a Patreon supporter, we've posted the first 10. You guys are going to get, you Patreon supporters and channel members get early access to what we do here. And thank you all for your kindness, generosity, and support. So, and also, I got to do the good YouTube thing and remind you to please like, comment, subscribe, and share these videos on your social media. It really does help us. And be sure to smash that like button on the way out. The algorithm likes that engagement. Leave some comments. I read every single comment. I may not reply to everyone, but I definitely read every single comment. So get those comments in. So that's all I got for you, friends. Until next time, my name is Stephen Cambion. Good night, and God bless all of you.